council meeting for the month of May together. The clerk, please call the roll.
Councilor Cortez?
Present.
Councilor Corn?
Here.
Councilor Oropesa?
Here.
Councilor Cavan?
Here.
Councilor Moore?
Here.
Councilor Marujo?
Here.
Councilor Johnson?
Here.
Councilor Arnold? Here. Councilor Halverson?
Here.
Councilor Hildenbrand?
Right.
Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you. If we could, we'll stand up and have the prayer and the pledge of allegiance, the prayer by Councilman Marujo and the pledge by Council Lady Moore.
Dear Lord, we come before you, give you all glory and honor. First of all, Father God, we thank you for allowing us to be here, Father God. We ask you to be in our presence, Father God, as we make decisions today. I lift up our firemen, our police officers, our Army, our Navy, Air Force, and Marines, Father God. We lift up all the people that are here, Father God, and we praise you and give you glory and honor. In your name we pray, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. So we have, first thing we have is approval of the agenda. So first we should welcome Councilor Horn back. He is, he's got a new bouncy knee and everything. He's doing really good.
I don't know how bouncy it is, Mr. Mayor, but it's working with me.
Well, you were walking better anyway.
Yeah, I'm walking.
Okay, so if we could, Councilor Halverson for approval of the agenda.
Mr. Mayor, Council, I move to approve the agenda for the May 8th, 2025 regular city council meeting with the following changes. Move item 25, the consent agenda, which includes the appointments of Carrie Hollifield, Mike Espiritu, and Dr. Sean Powell to the Airport Advisory Commission. And pull item 21.
Item 21, yes, that's for the, we had a proclamation to recognize some workers, but didn't get happening for being next month.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilor Halverson, Councilor Lady Halverson, and a second by Councilor Cavan to approve the agenda as amended. You do a roll call, or is it okay, voice vote?
A roll call.
Okay, clerk, call the roll.
Councilor Cortez?
Aye.
Councilor Corn?
Is this on approval of the minutes?
Of the
The
agenda.
Of
agenda.
the agenda? Yes.
Councilor Oropesa?
Yes.
Councilor Cavan?
Yes.
Councilor Moore?
Yes.
Councilor Marujo?
Yes.
Councilor Johnson?
Yes.
Councilor Arnold? Yes. Councilor Halverson?
Yes.
And Councilor Hildenbrand?
Aye.
By a vote of 10 in the affirmative, none negative, the agenda has been approved. Next we have, item 2, which is approval of the consent agenda for May the 28th, regular city councilman, Council Lady Halverson.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the consent agenda as amended for the May 8th, 2025 regular city council meeting.
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second by Councilor Halverson, second by Johnson, Councilor Johnson. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, clerk, call the roll.
Councilor Cortez?
Aye.
Councilor Corn?
Yes.
Councilor Oropesa?
Yes.
Councilor Cavan?
Yep.
Councilor Moore?
Yes.
Councilor Marujo?
Yes.
Councilor Johnson?
Yes.
Councilor Arnold? Yes. Councilor Halverson?
Yes.
Councilor Hildenbrand?
Aye.
Okay, so now we're done with 3 through 17. Okay, we'll go to item 18, the draft minutes. For item 18 is
Are the
the,
minutes in the consent?
Yes, they are.
They're part of the consent?
17, you gotta go to 17.
You said,
done, we had 17, we approved through 17 and
Well, it says on the front here, the approval, consent items 3 through 16.
mine has 17.
That was a mistake on my part. It should have been through 17.
3 through 17
Yes.
is what it is.
18 isn't in the consent either?
they in the minutes?
So
Do we
next,
need to amend that?
well, it's too late now, so we just
So
vote
that
to
is-
approve the amendment, the amount. So we'll go on item, 18, because we should have gone down one more, that's fine. So on item 18, if we, Counselor Halverson, if you would please make a motion to approve the minutes item on 18, Council Lady Halverson.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the draft minutes from Thursday, April 10th, 2025.
Second.
Mr. Mayor?
Okay, and the second was by Marujo?
Yes. Mr. Mayor?
Yes, just a minute. Okay, Counselor Corn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to be shown as not voting for the draft minutes. I wasn't at the meeting, so kind of ludicrous for me to vote on minutes when I wasn't there. Have no idea what happened.
So then, if there is no objection, Counselor Corn has been requested to be excused from voting on the minutes of the meeting. If there is no objection,
Mayor?
Counselor, do you object?
No, I had a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Since we changed the number to 17, do we need to re-vote that we included 17?
No, we
We're
had
just gonna put that. we changed
17 was
number
on the
in
motion that I read.
It was, in-
Yes, I changed my.
you said 17, but on this paper said 16.
Yes, ma'am, but
Okay.
the motion I read said 17, so we shouldn't have to change that.
All right, I just wanted to make sure we included. Sorry.
And, so next, and we're in the process now, we could have gone to 18, so we're in the process now of doing the minutes on item 18. Counselor Corn is asked to be shown as excused from voting because he was not at the amendment. Is there any objection? If there's no objection, it's so ordered. Counselor Corn will be shown as excused for that. And now if the clerk would call the roll, please.
Can you do the roll call?
We can do a voice vote on this.
Any voice?
Voice.
You want to do a voice vote? Okay. All those in favor of approving item 18 is moved by Counselor Halverson, seconded by Counselor Marujo. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, by a vote of 9 and none, with one excused, the motion's been adopted. Okay, next we're down on non-action items. We have one individual who wanted to talk on a non-action item. If they would care to speak now, I don't know what it's on, but is it Charlie Marley? Charlie? Is there anybody, what is that?
Is it Candy Money? I'm sorry.
Oh, Candy,
Is it
okay.
me? Okay, I'm so sorry. He was actually gonna speak, he didn't sign in. This is my first time here. I know a few of you up there. But we're having a lot of issues around our neighborhoods as far as like drug.
Can you come up to
Oh,
the
I'm sorry.
microphone?
Thanks.
Just state your name and address, please.
My name is, thank you, Candy Monday.
Monday, okay.
Yeah, I know a few of you, but.
Address.
So, address is 1727 North Delaware. And a couple of the counselors have been to our neighborhood watch meeting, and we're having a very hard time trying to control the drug trafficking, the constant problems that we're having around there. They're squatting in houses that are empty, tearing them up, and so I didn't know exactly how to approach this. So when I was invited, he was actually gonna speak, but he didn't sign in. But anyway, that's what we had. We just wanted to bring that up, and I don't know what else I need to say, but like I said, I know Chris is gonna go to our next meeting as far as, and I know Ed has been there, but, yeah,
If you can kind of make a list of problem houses or houses that are vacant, so we can go through and check and see, and we'll see what we can do about getting some more additional there. But if you, it would help if we had, rather than just very general, if you get more of your neighbors involved, and they give us a list of problems that they see in the neighborhood, so then it gives our people an idea of what problems they're looking for. They don't have to reinvent the wheel.
right,
And if you wouldn't mind getting together and getting that in and bring it to City Hall, we'll get it to the proper individuals who will check it out, code enforcement and things, to see where we are.
we're past that point. We've been involved for quite a while. We've talked about this when you guys showed up. We have code enforcement. Mo's been working really hard. It's really past that point, and it's still going on.
I'm not just talking about just code enforcement. I want a good list of what's going on, so we can go, and there are other people other than code enforcement.
Okay.
But we don't want to threaten anybody or cause them to be worried about who's coming, but when the people come, then we should take care of it the best we can.
Okay.
I just want a good list,
Okay.
and that's all. I'm not,
Okay. that's
I'm
fine.
not going back to
Like I said,
code
this is new to me. I don't, I wasn't planning on speaking tonight. I had.
No, that's fine. I'm just, that's all I'm saying. I know code enforcement, what codes are being broken. If they see anything like that, that's another reason that we can perform activities. But if we have a good list to start from, then we don't miss somebody inadvertently.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all, not asking anything, doesn't mean rocket scientists, just,
Right,
you know.
and just drop it off at the city hall?
Yeah, city,
Okay.
drop it off to the mayor's office or city manager, he'll get it. Yeah, go ahead, Council.
And this kind of activity is, of course, is rampant in the town.
Right, no,
And, it's not going on deaf ears, but at the same time, to hold us accountable, you know? Seriously, get the list though, get it, compiled, and we'll put our resources to work on it. But,
okay.
don't give up, just because,
We haven't, it's been a long,
it's a lengthy process sometimes, and sometimes it can be short and quick, and, but don't give up, and most of all, if you feel we're not doing something, come back.
okay,
Seriously.
that sounds great.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, I've attended their neighborhood watch meeting. They're a very active neighborhood watch group. Things got better for a short period of time. I know the police department has been over there and did some, I guess, arrests took place out of that area.
There's always a rest.
Yeah, a couple of them
Yeah.
took place, and so.
And they get right back out.
Got right back out.
Yeah, they get right back out. I
Judge
mean,
let him right out now.
the other day, I had, I asked a friend to come because her husband's truck was stolen the other day, and it was by a crack. Somebody that was on crack. They already called the police on the jail. She's the one that ran the stop sign, almost killed a person. She got right back out.
It's a problem with their judicial
Right back
system.
out. And she did this to her husband as he was trying to get his truck. This is like ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, maybe some conversation needs to happen with the district attorney as well.
Yeah. And I know you guys have mentioned that. You guys have said, the police, they do what they can. I'm sorry, it's the judges. They're getting right back out.
Yeah.
And they pretty much throw it in our face.
Yeah, it's pretty bad over there.
Yeah.
Real bad.
Anyway, and I appreciate you guys going,
Thank you again.
yeah.
Councilman Halverson.
So if you can too, please keep me posted, and I invite you to come to public safety, because all the emergency services are there. It's next Tuesday for,
Okay.
yeah, so I invite you to come and just give us
Is
an
it the
update.
same right here?
No, it's at City Hall,
City Hall, okay.
and you can sign up for public.
Perfect. Daryl, Carlos, it's good to see you.
As well.
Okay, thank you. Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And it's frustrating too, because at our office, we had less than a block from our office, just down the alley, not even a half a block away. We had a place there that they converted 9 storage units into bedrooms, and, 202 North Penn or something like that, or 206. But anyway, it was, we had them in there, we had a murder and everything else in the thing, and they were there, called there over 200 times, and they had it on the record. And so it is very frustrating to do, but if we just get everybody's, all the information out there, so we don't miss anything, and make sure we get, by doing that, if you get all the neighbors that are on watching the neighborhood side out there, then we get more people being alert and telling people, calling when they see a problem, that we can get somebody there right away to remedy the situation. And that's just why, if we have that, if people put their names, phone numbers on there, whether somebody, officer can call, what do you mean? It just makes a lot of difference. That's all. So thank you, Andy Monday. Okay, next, we have item 19, Miss Thompson, please.
Good evening, Mayor, council members.
You need to pull that microphone down, or unless we get to go through step for you.
I'll pull the microphone down. So good evening. First of all, I'd like to report on revenue. Now, the revenue, as we reported at the AAC meeting this week,
You need to speak in the microphone, it's not picking up very well.
is very good this month. It's $8,817,17. Now, I can tell you of that $8 million, we had the insurance settlement. City leadership did well in the air sale building that burnt a year ago now. We got the insurance settlement of that, which accounted for over $7 million, but we still had $1.2 million in actual income revenue. Expenses were $810,000, so it was a good positive month again. But I can tell you there's been a lot of activity at the airport, tremendous amount, and I've got to say thank you to a lot of people. You'll see the airport staff listed there that have just been working. But we've also, and I've got to compliment this community. I've worked in a lot of different communities, but never have I seen the kind of assistance, teamwork, and help that's going on right now. And that's certainly be complimented, and your leadership certainly reflects that. But if you look on here, you'll see that we also had landfill people working. There was a berm out there that had been part of a shooting range. Landfill very much took care of that. Then Andrew and his folks are still out there working, putting water lines for the RV lots, which, as you know, you'll have income from those. So that's going very well. We also had Frank from the Streets Department. He's doing a great deal of work with the parking in the RV lots as well. And certainly Jim Burris and his with all the land we have out there, or what we have out there, and all the extra work we have right now, it was very helpful for Parks to come out and help us with a lot of that mowing and getting ready for that. But I'd like to go back a little bit in time here. A couple of years ago, this community decided that they were going to chase something called the National Championship Air Races. And so did 37 other communities. So Roswell chased it very hard. They participated, they were active, they came, they looked, and they thought, that's something we can do. So after a couple of years, Roswell certainly was selected, as you know. And now you're the only place in the entire world where this happens. Now what does that mean? How important is that? Well, first of all, we're estimating the economic impact to be between $60 and $80 million. So that's pretty important. We are convinced that there will be a tremendous amount of media coverage highlighting this community and what this community can do, because it pulls together and works together, which is very important going forward for job creation, keeping our youth in the community. We think that's also important. We also think it's going to be a great boost to local businesses. Everything from the mom and pop restaurants to the hotel chains to the gas stations, all those are going to benefit by having an extra 60,000 people here for 10 days or so. So thank you so much for seeking out the races. It's also gonna be a boost to the overall activity at the airport. We've already seen that increase in activity. And some of the things we've been doing these last few days to keep us busy is a lot of pavement work. We had that, as we call it, the taco chip, that 84 acres, getting all that done. Water lines installed for the RV section, electric pedestals so that those can be full hookups. Additional gates so that we can control those gates and allow people to come in without disturbing the rest of the airport so we can operate as normal. And also, just a reminder, we do have that pylon race school that starts on the 18th of the month. There's a lot of activity. If any of you are interested in participating more directly, because it's a non-public event, we can certainly make those arrangements and tell you when the best days to be here, and time and place, and get you educated so you can start watching what's going on. Because I'm sure all of you get asked questions about this, and we're hoping to provide you for some answers going forward. And now I'm going to go to Mr. Kunkel, because we also have a number of airport, just pure airport projects going on that he'll update you on.
Thank you, Mr. Kunkel, Bud, please. Enlighten us, thank you.
Before I get started, I want to thank the mayor. He's filled out the Airport Advisory Commission, and that got put on consent earlier this evening. So thank you. We've got a good group of folks, and we're tickled to have Kerry Hollifield in there with us now, so thank you. Good evening, Mayor Jennings and Roswell City Councilors. The AAC had our May meeting on Tuesday this week. We had several city employees in attendance, including city manager, city attorney, 2 city councilors, thank you for being there, and some tenants. Thanks to everyone that attended our meeting. It was a lengthy agenda, but we made good progress through about 20+ items. The ADB lighting project, we talk about that pretty much every month, but that does continue on a monthly basis. ADB is usually out there at least 1 week, sometimes 2 weeks a month. This was a 3-year project to improve wiring and lighting on the runways. Much of this infrastructure was original from the Air Force, with the original wiring just buried in the dirt, not installed even in conduit. The new electrical vault portion of the project has been somewhat delayed with bids, expected to go out in the next 2 weeks instead of last month. We anticipated that it would have sent to bid last month. Completion time for the vault is still expected to be in August or September, with about a 60-day build time. This vault is expected to provide greater reliability to the new lighting on all the Air Center runways. The airport master plan is still awaiting FAA approval. Hopefully that approval will happen this month to complete the project by the end of June. The BLM loading pit and taxiway, I talked extensively about that last month. It is fully funded, as has been previously reported. Construction is expected to begin after the fire season, possibly as early as August of this year. The apron rehab project in front of the terminal, that is expected to receive a notice to proceed in the next few days, maybe early next week. This is expected to be a 60-day project to rehab quite a bit of the concrete that's damaged in front of the terminal building. The taxiway Charlie project, repair damage from heavy aircraft being parked during COVID, which damaged the asphalt paving. This project is in final review. Hopefully state grant money will be received in the next few weeks, and this is expected to be a $1.8 to $2 million project. The terminal improvement project, which is primarily renovation of 2 restroom areas, received a bid on April the 21st. The restroom renovations will be done by the same contractor and in conjunction with the repairs to the terminal building due to the flood last August. The terminal flood repairs have begun on the west end of the terminal building in the American Airlines desk and also at the Walker Aviation Museum. It's still anticipated that the restroom renovations will be completed by September 1, prior to the air races. The Southeast Waterline project is now proceeding with bids being accepted to also install a sewer line while installing the water line for the southeast corner of the Air Center. The Challenger Drive drainage project has been looked at by city staff. The lack of drainage in this area is in front of Building 58, which is leased to Air Sale. Mac Rogers has committed to have a survey completed by our next meeting to determine a plan to better drain the area. Don Fisher reported that the Air Center now has 24/7 security coverage. This is expected to continue for the foreseeable future. The final item of importance discussed was the 5-year capital improvement plan for the Air Center. This capital improvement plan includes projects that total exceed $45 million in required funding. Most of this funding is expected to be provided by the federal government and the state government. This concludes my report, and I stand for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Conklin. We have questions from any members of the council? Mr. Conklin?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Bud.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Ms. Thompson, I would like to thank you for your diligence in since you've been here, you found a lot of money and brought a lot of rents current at the airport, and you've certainly done a fine job on making changes, and you've helped an awful lot with our dealings with the FAA and on the air races, the Roswell air races. And so I want to thank you all. Thank you very much for your diligence. We've never had this many tenants that are all current and without issues, and you found a whopping amount of money on an insurance settlement that we received. I just want to thank you for your diligence and thank you for being here and doing a good job.
Oh, two things I'd like to follow up, Mr. Mayor, if I might. Certainly got to credit leadership at City Hall on that insurance that's been chasing that. Now, those buildings, we're getting bids currently on the removal of those buildings, to scrape them down so that site could be used for future private equity builds. So far, those bids are coming in at over $1 million to clean those up because they are full of asbestos. And the other item, which we'll be bringing you that capital plan to look at next month after we get through finance with it. And probably the most interesting point about that, of course, there's a lot of projects on there, as you might imagine, but that is almost equal to the amount that the airport has received in the last 60 years from Fort Worth.
Thank you very, very much.
Great job, Bob.
One other thing, just as long as we're on the airport business, in the rah-rah and everything that's going on, I would encourage anyone to look up CorvetteForum.com and look up, or you can Google a 2006 or 2026 Corvette. And I would ask you to do that, and you can look at the two new colors they have. But, you know, one of the new colors they have is the metallic green, and it's called Roswell green. And they left off the alien because I think it looks pretty much alien orientated. When you look at that metallic green color, I think you will be excited, and I really can't wait until we have a race between an airplane and that Corvette, so we can see who wins at our air races that we have. And these 2026, I think, will come out in September of 26, surely General Motors wants to have the greatest opening they've ever had. Could be right here and we could have a race and everything else. They just need to make sure it doesn't have a 6.2 liter engine in it like my Suburban. You know, and keep the deer off, it won't hurt to keep the deer off the runways as well. So Bobby, you're in charge of that, so. But, you know, it's really a unique color and it really just fits right in. So, that's gonna be a lot of fun. But thank you. Okay, next we have item 20, flood disaster updates. Mr. Gallagher and Mr. McPherson, please.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council members. I'm Deb Gallagher. I don't know if I've met all of you. My colleague Jeff McPherson and I are very pleased to be working here on behalf of the City of Roswell. Jeff and I have been in the disaster space for well over 25 to 30 years. We've worked with a lot of municipalities, and your team is impressive. Your departments are dedicated, and they definitely are going to be the pivotal pieces to the puzzle that are gonna get you across the finish line in your recovery. And today we're gonna offer an update in terms of where we're at in your recovery process. Keep going. So the City of Roswell is facing a puzzle pieces of putting together your disaster funding. All of your impacted departments are trying to recover, and the city is trying to find funding in order to support that recovery. And the first and foremost is insurance. When looking at any type of disaster event, all other funding sources will look to insurance first. Your city had a $10 million flood policy, and that flood policy has been exhausted and paid by commercial insurance. It was utilized with the low-hanging fruit of your emergency vehicles and fleet to try to draw down that funding, and has been secured and paid to the city. Now we're going to use those same dollars and submit them to FEMA, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, but that insurance funding has been protected. We're working through another insurance policy, and that's your fine arts policy. The fine arts policy is a $36 million policy, and within that policy, it will cover all of the fine art damages, although it does have some sublimit and some coverage issues that may come into play. Those coverage issues could be the difference between the appraisal value of a piece of art versus the restoration of a piece of art. The museum coverage does pay for the appraisal value, and if the recovery value is higher, they will not pay for that. So they take the lower of the two. The good news is that if the recovery dollars are higher, so if it takes more to conserve a piece of art, FEMA could pick up the difference. And so we're going to try to funnel any uninsured losses that are within the museum policy through FEMA. We also have FEMA. So FEMA is a means of last resort. They've been on the ground since day one and have been a great partner to the city. We've been working side by side with them. They've been very patient in trying to identify all the city's damages, and so far we have done that. The original due date was 60 days after the date of we had a recovery scoping meeting. They extended that until May 1st. So as of May 1st, we have submitted all of the city's damages. And so now we're in the process of putting those damages into projects, and we'll go into that a little bit in detail. FEMA does pick up any uninsured items, which we've already exhausted $10 million, so anything that would have been otherwise insured, they will cover. FEMA will also pick up things that are typically not insured, like your infrastructure damage, your roads, your bridges, you know, everything else that was impacted with the landfill and everything associated with those infrastructure as well. FEMA does also offer opportunities to build back stronger. Unlike insurance that puts you back the way you were, maybe to code, FEMA does have a mitigation project that's attached to that damage, and that damage would be under their 406 mitigation cost. And so FEMA is a very robust program. It's a very tedious and lengthy process, but it gets you across that finish line. FEMA also does have a 25% cost share, so they pay 75 cents on every dollar. So there's other funding mechanisms that are going to come into play that we're looking to help fund that 25% cost share. The city's done a great job, and the mayor and the state, in trying to support the House bill and Senate Bill 31 to try to get some loan money in to try to cover that cost share. The good news about that interest rate that the city may have to expense is that it can be recovered through FEMA's program. So we will be putting together projects to recover the interest rate on those loans. And then we also have CDBGR, which is the disaster funding. It's $137 million, a portion to the state. A portion of that is going to be going to housing. It's over $100 million currently earmarked toward housing. But the $37 million, a portion of that can be used to offset that, recover the cost share for FEMA. And so we're trying to find all avenues so that there is little out-of-pocket expenses to the city from a long-term recovery standpoint. Can I go to the next one?
Sure. All right, good evening, y'all. Nice to be here with you today. Here's a slide that depicts the FEMA sort of programmatic process, right? And we don't plan to bore you with the gory details here, or we would be here past midnight. But you can see there's a lot of tedious steps. And unfortunately, FEMA just doesn't move quickly. It's impossible to fast track them. If you do accelerate it, you're not going to optimize your recoveries. And so it's a very careful and long process. And so we wanted to share this with you members and the community as well, so you understand expectation-wise that we're in for the long game here. Like Deb said, thanks to the tremendous resources here at City Hall as well as the department heads, we've made some great strides in a short amount of time. Our kickoff meeting with FEMA was December the 12th. Like Deb mentioned, our damage inventory was due May 1st, just last week, and we've got some stats to show you where projects are currently in FEMA's system. I think the Finance Committee will be impressed with the success that we've made just in the last weeks of time when we met with them last Thursday. In the middle of this sort of snake processing programmatic flowchart, you'll see a lot of what FEMA refers to as the description of damage and dimensions. It represents the backbone of FEMA. And if this room were flooded with 3 feet of water, we would put together close to 300 different line items that represent the FEMA claim, just in this room alone. To share an example, we did the same thing for the convention center. FEMA came out, did the site inspection. We had a spreadsheet with 1,400 different damage line items that were validated by FEMA in one day. And we were concerned that site inspection, might take a week, but it was the third inspection that we did with FEMA site inspectors. We've established some goodwill with them, and so it helped sort of speed up that process. And then once those damages are agreed upon, then you go through the pricing of what the repair or the replacement might be, so that you can make a decision on what you want to do with that FEMA funding going forward. When you get to the bottom of the process here, sort of the navy blue steps, phase 6 and 7, that's after FEMA has approved and obligated the funding. Okay, we'll touch more on that in a future slide. And then you sort of transition over to the state, right? So the state receives the federal dollars from FEMA, and then you have to draw down that funding from the state. And there's a whole separate process of steps. The state 2 weeks ago did a reimbursement PowerPoint to explain that process. And that PowerPoint was 49 pages, which just goes to show how difficult it is not only to get the FEMA funding obligated, but then to work through that drawdown process at the state side. Next slide, please.
And just so you know, from a duplication of benefit and protecting of funding, Jeff and I are both forensic accountants, and so we plan to make sure that none of that funding ever gets taken back. So that is our end game for you. So as of today, we have 351 line items, actually 350, we took one off the list since last week, totaling about $220 million. Now, those are rough order of magnitude numbers. Some of those numbers are low. For example, at the convention center, we had a conservative number in there that may go up, right? And so some of those numbers may come down, depending upon where the actual costs come in. We've allocated it by FEMA's categories of damage, all the way from debris removal down to parks and recreation. You can see the biggest portion of this is in your roads and bridges and in your facility structures, where we think you have at least 3 to 4 facilities that will pass the 50% rule to replace or substantial damage in a flood zone through FEMA, which will also drive those replacement cost dollars. And so we've worked with FEMA over the past week, since we met last week, to formulate these 350 projects, or 350 locations into 108 projects. There's a lot of strategy on how we've grouped the projects together. Small projects under $1,061,000 go through the system a lot faster than projects over the $1,061,000. Funding comes to the city faster under the small project threshold. FEMA was very good about allowing us to not group too many projects together to get over that threshold, because they recognize the city's need for funding. And so we've been working with them. That's why there's 108 and not 50, is because it'll get through the system faster. The ones that are over the $1 million are protecting you all, because when projects are over the $1 million threshold, there's an opportunity to claim overruns that are driven by scope or cost. And so we'll be working to make sure that we validate anything that gets, for example, in reviewing a building that was damaged, once you start doing repairs, you may find additional damage. And so we document those overruns. And so we don't want to leave the city vulnerable to anything that's under the small project threshold, because small project thresholds get locked in. And so we've been strategic on how we're working through that.
Thanks, Deb. So this next slide will show you a recap as of yesterday of where projects are in FEMA's system. So despite the May 1st deadline of last week, we've been working behind the scenes with FEMA to get projects in the system to hopefully speed up that reimbursement process. And so currently there's 39 projects in FEMA's grants portal system. You can see the grouping at the top. We now have 4 that are obligated for $5.1 million. And obligated is a FEMA term that means they've transferred the federal funds to the state. So the state of Mexico now has $5.1 million earmarked for Roswell. And so we're going to be working closely with them to draw that funding down. Tony today submitted the first form on project, I believe it was 806126. So we look forward to seeing when the $164,000 of that $219,000 project comes in, but that's going to be a good indicator of when the rest of these projects get funded. The next group there in the middle, there's 7 projects worth $1.4 million. They're working their way through the FEMA process, and there's multiple review steps. I mean, FEMA's got an army in the field here that reviews everything before it gets submitted to FEMA headquarters. And then there's a group sort of behind the scenes. You know, you can't believe just how many different sets of FEMA eyes review this information. But we look forward to seeing another, 1.4 million obligated here in the next, 4 weeks. And then the grouping at the bottom represents 28 projects. And if you could go to the next slide, please, you'll see it totals 15.5 million. And these are projects that we're working with your city departments to collect all the cost documentation and backup and the procurement narrative and all the compliance support that goes into building these projects. And so our goal is to try to get those 28 projects submitted in the next 2 months. And so you see of the 39 total projects, Deb mentioned we anticipate 108 in total. We've got 39 in the works valued at $22.1 million, and so we're very proud of the kind of success here in the first 6 months, and that's a credit to the resources that you have here at your departments. Do you have anything else?
Yeah, I'd like to mention one thing. If you could go back one slide, please. In the projects that are working their way through the system in the second group where it says project spending FEMA review, you'll see projects that have the words A&E only next to them. Those are the locations like the museum, the convention center, the Boy Scout building, the Rock, and the IT building, where we've asked FEMA to write what's called a version 0 project to allow to substantiate those damages, which we've done those site inspections, to allow for architect and engineering fees. Because it's going to take a long time to know what the dollar values are for those projects and what the decision making behind them is going to be. So we're going to be securing A&E allowances so that you can go out and secure A&E services to protect those. And so you can see at the adult center, for example, it says repair, it says $225,000. Well, we know that's definitely not the value. And so when we're talking about these numbers, we're working to get those A&E fees secured first, and then we'll do what's called an amendment, which we're actually doing our first amendment to the IT building because we've already got a package put together to indicate that that building has passed a 50% rule from a damage perspective, and so we're seeking replacement. So that's kind of to understand what we're trying to focus on during these initial projects with FEMA. So I think we're at the question session.
Okay, in looking at things now, so since we have we're relatively sure from what they've said, our insurance company will not cover us going back into the museum. So at what point do we get to where we can start working on a plan to figure something else out? I mean, if you could get that kind of information to us so we can figure out where to put it. That building has 51,000 square feet. It's going to be our largest project. And then, and I think you know as well that we have a gross receipts plans that goes in July 1st, and it'll take, what, 60 days to get the results back from probably the taxes that are collected in that time period, so we can come look at some kind of bonding capacity to see how much money we can raise, because we're gonna have to have a lot of upfront cash. And so any kind of things that you can look about that, our museum is extremely an important part of the tourism that we get here, and so I hope we can kind of sit down and figure out where that goes, and of course we need to have the convention center open too. I don't know, we can probably get maybe 75, maybe a little more, 80 or 100 million, maybe we could, just depending on how much the gross receipts tax generates, and but if we can get that, how much bonding capacity we can get from bonding it for 20 years to come up with the upfront cash so we can get on FEMA's list. And I would be interested in that when we talk about getting on their list. If we have the convention center and the museum, some estimates on construction costs are for a museum that I've received are right at $1,000 a square foot. And so in looking at that, need to figure out how much money are we gonna have if 75 million would be enough to get us to get the upfront money to get on FEMA's projects list, and then how the money comes back, how far the 75 to 100 million dollars will go. If you all give that some ideas to think about, come up this week or something, give me some ideas. We still have to get the architect and engineering to design whatever we're gonna do if we do something there. Okay, we have questions. I have first on the list, I have Ms. Halverson. No.
Thanks for the information. I had a question for you, correct me if I misunderstood. You said projects that are under $1,061,000 go through quicker. First of all, where did $61 come from?
61,000, million 61,000.
But what's with the 61,000?
FEMA changes their small project threshold every year, so used to be at 129 or 130,000. And in the last couple of years, they raised it to $1 million, and then it went to $1,030,000, now it's at inflation.
It was just a weird number up there.
It is a weird number.
So my question is, the large projects are gonna cost more, and they may frown upon this, but do you try to break them down into smaller projects so they get done quicker? So they fall under that 1,061,000?
Twofold, to get done faster and to get funding faster.
Okay.
So the work that's been completed, for example, of the 108 projects, you've probably completed over $20 million worth of expenditures. We're gonna treat most of those as small projects. There are some large projects, as you've seen, but to try to refund some of the money. For example, the street work that was done, we had 7 or 8 projects. We've strategically broken them up across the city so that they didn't go over the $1 million. And they've agreed to that, so we can draw down that funding faster.
Okay, because like when he was mentioning like this room alone, you could actually break that up into several different projects, like you've been doing, I guess.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Councilor Johnson.
So once we get the obligation, and it has to go through, because the obligation, the funds end up with the state of New Mexico. And I guess maybe this is towards you, Tony. Is that process pretty hard? Going through, I don't know how many pages you said per obligation, is that pretty cumbersome? And is that gonna be a problem? I can, 40-something pages you guys said?
No, so, the process, Deb and Jeb are still gonna be active in that.
Oh, are you? Okay.
Yes.
Great.
And so they'll, review it, so on our side first, before we sign anything. And then, we fill out the forms, which I did today. It was a simple form. And then, I send it back to DHSEM, and then from there, we'll wait for the funds to come in.
Okay, so what is the time period from obligation to actually receiving the funds?
That's with the state, so it's
Yeah,
just
with the
depends-
state, I mean.
Yeah, it could be, 4 to 6 weeks, and
Okay.
depends on the, yeah.
Just like FEMA with the large and small projects, the state funds the smallers faster. And they don't do a validation of 100% of the cost back up. If it's a large project over that $1,061,000 threshold, they review every single transaction. Whether it's $5 or $5 million, some of these projects are gonna have, hundreds of transactions.
Gotcha.
And the state's gonna not only wanna see the invoice, but the proof of payment, like an independent third-party validation to show that it was paid, and the procurement story behind it. And so part of our role, like Tony mentioned, is just to make sure that those compliance, audit paperwork background is very buttoned down and tight so that there's no risk over future de-obligation or clawback.
Right.
4 to 6 weeks is a good estimate. We've sent the paperwork today, so it'll be a good indicator in the coming weeks of how fast the state can process those, right?
The state does break down the small projects, so under 500,000, they're gonna pay quick. Between 500 and $1 million, they do ask for documentation, and then over the $1 million, they're gonna get a little bit more
Hence the
nitty-gritty.
reason you make the smaller projects.
You got it.
Perfect.
Okay, that all counselor, okay, Councilor Cortez?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you guys both. You said there were multiple structures or buildings that you think are going to be over the substantial damage threshold. And do you have a working list of what that would be? Would you feel comfortable saying that?
Sure, we're early in the process, right? And so this is just based on our current assessment. FEMA, again, has a long review period, and they don't like to replace buildings, just from experience. We've replaced a lot of buildings with FEMA, but when you submit a 50% rule, which is when the estimated repairs exceed 50% of the estimated replacement, you're entitled to replacement. The substantial damage is a little different. You've got facilities in a flood zone. Here it's zone AH. That 50% is based on the fair market value. So if the estimated repairs exceed 50% of the fair market value, much lower number, then you have to follow Executive Order 11988, floodplain management ordinances to flood-proof the building. We plan to incorporate mitigation measures to protect these buildings regardless of their repair or replacement. But the list, to your original question of potential replacement candidates, would be the museum, the Adult Rec Center, the Parks IT building, the Rock, the Boy Scout building, and then, you know, the convention is probably just below that threshold.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any further questions? Okay, and you know, another thing that is a little bit of a disappointment in the legislature is that at the end of the session, right at the end of last day, they said they had $150 million in money for the flood, all the flood and fire victims. And I know Ruidoso, they gave specific amounts of money to Ruidoso, and they give specific up north. So I don't know how that all goes, but that $50 million of, I guess, upfront payments they're gonna loan us to get, till we get the money back from FEMA. We need to see what we can do as soon as we can, so we can make a list to the state. So if we have to fight with the other two areas that got them, that are flood victims, we need to be able to fund, get as much of that 50 million that was there as we can, because our needs are still gonna be great, and people don't understand, but we have probably $70 million worth of damage in the watershed areas here. So that is not gonna be probably refundable. There is a plan, they are supposed to be putting together a plan to, the way I understand it, to come in and look at flood mitigation for the whole area. And that's something that we'll have to figure out, and that will be something that they would help us fund and plan. The Flood Commission has worked with that and has met with some of them on how to alleviate this so it never happens again. It is just you've got 10,000 cubic feet per second. It comes off of one section and goes into an 1,100 cubic feet per second channel that's already full of 900 cubic feet of water. So you have a net gain moving water of 200 cubic feet, and you're getting 10,000 cubic feet per second. That's where we're gonna have a problem if we don't find another way to divert the water back around, either back down towards the Rio Feliz or somewhere, or to another way to get it to the Pecos River as fast as possible. Except when you go fast, you have to meander because the speed of the water becomes uncontrollable if it goes straight. So those are just things that we have. So, but I do. Any other questions? Okay. Well, thank you all very, very much for your work, and you've been. I'm certainly glad we have you here to help us get through this. This is quite a unique thing we're going through. Okay, next, item 21 was pulled, and so we have item 22, Chief Bateman. Oh, we have Deputy Chief Taylor.
Mayor and City Council, obviously I'm not Chief Bateman, far better looking. So, I will present the notification of the out-of-state travel for the Roswell Police Department. We had, in April, we had 2 of our K-9 officers. We've got approval through the city manager. It had to be done within a very quick time restraint to send 2 of our officers to choose a new K-9. That time restraint was based on the kennel's requirements and the amount of dogs that they had at that time to be able to choose from. So that was approved.
They traveled to Honey Grove, Texas, and that was in the earlier part of April, after city council, but of course, here we are on this one. We have 5 other officers that will be traveling in the future. Kemi Agiri and Angela Sharp. They will be traveling to Wilmington, North Carolina. That'll be in the latter part of May and first part of June. They will be traveling to become certified on the new software through Cellbrite. It's not a new, but it's a platform that we use to be able to search cell phones, and they will be able to go in and get certified on that new software and new platform. The next are Patrick Silvas and Danny Flott, K-9 officers again. They'll be traveling in August, and that is to Dallas, Texas. It is for a K-9 HITS conference. The HITS stands for the handler, I tried to do it, but it's not gonna work. Handler Instruction and Training Seminar. That is coming up in August 25th through August 28th. The reason that we are presenting that so early is because those classes fill up very quickly. And to get authorization for that travel so that we could get them registered and set up for that class. And the last is Michael Fry to the FBI LEDA in Prescott, Arizona. Again, that's in November. That is another class that fills up very quickly, and so you have to do it months in advance. And so we wanted approval for that out-of-state travel well in advance to be able to get that person into that class. I stand for any questions.
We have any questions? Thank you very much. We'll tell old ugly you did good. Okay, next. Is there anyone, we had one person signed on, Ms. Candy Monday had signed up. The other 3 individuals have signed up to speak. Mr. Gross, Mr. Crumlin, and Mr. Hicks are on the next item 23. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to make any public statements or say something within about 3 minutes? Is there anyone else? Okay, seeing none, then we'll go on to item 23. Council Lady Halverson to continue the public hearing on case number VAC-25-007 to vacate vacation of East 9th Street on a 60 wide public right-of-way from North Main Street to North Virginia Avenue, and to vacate the alleys and south alleys from 8th Street to 10th Street from the public right-of-ways and convert to a public utility reciprocal access agreements. Council Lady Halverson.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we open a public hearing for case VAC 25-0007 to request vacation of East 9th Street, 60 feet wide public right-of-way from North Main Street to North Virginia Avenue, and vacate adjacent north and south alleys from 8th Street to south of 10th Street from public right-of-way, and convert to a 25-foot public utility and reciprocal access easements for infill development in the C2 community commercial and I1 light industrial zoning districts.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. We have a motion by Council Lady Halverson and a second by Councilor Johnson. Okay, so anyone who cares to testify on this will have to be sworn in. Is that correct? So if Mr. Gross, Mr. Crumlin, and Mr. Hicks, and anyone else who would care to be testifying this, if they'll please stand and state your name, raise your hand, and the clerk will direct you. I mean, to swear you in. Good.
You raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under penalty of perjury?
I do. Okay, we have 5 people. We have 5 people lined up to testify, okay. We had the 2 in the back behind them, public staff, Meredith and so. Okay. Yeah. Do we want to go with that first, or which would be the proper way? Mr. Attorney, do we do the report that we had from where they asked us?
Yeah, I think the communication would be in order, Mr. Mayor.
Okay,
Yes, sir,
Mr.
Mr. Mayor.
Chad, if you would go ahead and read the publication we have.
Yes, sir, Mayor Jennings, members of the council. With regard to vacating public service, public use streets, the first thing we have to look to is City Council Ordinance 24003, Article 7, with regard to real property transactions. And real property is just land or anything permanently affixed to the land site. Section 2-201 clarifies that there must be no existing municipal purpose. Section A, just below that, prior to the sale, exchange, or donation of real property belonging to the city, such real property shall be determined to be not essential for any municipal purpose.
Get closer to the mic.
Sure. And I'll use my outside voice, because I don't think it's mine.
Yeah, that one's not on or something.
But just wave me in if you're not hearing it. Section.
We're on, I don't have them turn them on.
We'll go outside voice. I do believe it's on, it's just not.
Good, I can understand that. In that room right there. It's happening, don't worry.
Test. Okay, thank you, Chad. Leave it to the IT guys. Let me repeat section A of that ordinance. Prior to the sale, exchange, or donation of real property belonging to the city, such real property shall be determined to be not essential for any municipal purpose. Section B goes on to clarify, the mayor and city manager shall make this determination in writing and communicate the determination to the governing body. Each of you has this written determination there in front of you today. The essentials of that determination were communicated to Mr. Hicks, representing the Ford House today before this meeting. And I'll go on to read, not the whole communication, but I think it's important to read some sections here. This communication is sent to you pursuant to Ordinance 24-003. The mayor, the city manager determine and concur together that the land petition for vacation in case V as in Victor, A as in Alpha, C as in Charlie -25-007 still has a municipal purpose and public use. Hundreds of cars travel down this road daily, and a significant portion of those travelers are unrelated to the petitioner's business. We note that gross receipts tax for auto sales in their entirety are sent to Santa Fe, not Roswell, New Mexico. Further, the petitioner has cited financial tax gains to the city from this new construction. Petitioner also admits that these improvements must occur as a condition of the property being a Ford dealership. In other words, the granting the petitioner the vacation of a regularly used city street off of Roswell's largest arterial street, Main Street, would simply make the project more lucrative for the petitioner. As the leading treatise on municipal laws note, the primary purpose of streets is use for travel by the public, and this refers not alone to the adjacent property owners, but to the whole people. The right of public to the use of these streets is paramount to that abutting owner or that the individual or corporation, no matter what may be the use, which he or it desires to make of the street. With regard to the analysis, we have been provided a traffic study by the petitioner recently, and we've reviewed that. Per this analysis, per the petitioner's traffic study, at page 4 for the portion of the 9th Street in question, the average weekday 24-hour count was 250 vehicles per day, or BPD, with 114 vehicles per day traveling westbound, 137 vehicles per day traveling eastbound. The 24-hour average dropped to 117 vehicles per day, two-way, over the weekend. This was compared to a 2024 New Mexico DOT study that found 382 vehicles per day traveling east on 8th Street between North Main and North Virginia Avenue. This suggests that traffic on 9th Street is 66% of that of 8th Street. And in and of itself, 9th Street being utilized 1/3 less than 8th Street does not establish a lack of public use. No other minor streets were cited or analyzed in the petitioner's study. However, such data could have easily been included. It is in phase readily available to the public at New Mexico DOT public website. That the traffic study omitted any other street data is telling. This could be because 9th Street the street's use is simply not that far from the ordinary non-artery streets in Roswell, for which we have data. New Mexico DOT studies are generally done for major streets, so it reasonably follows that the vast majority of the roads surveyed are above 1,000 vehicles per day. Nevertheless, per DOT data, many streets in Roswell have similar traffic to the portion of 9th Street in question. For example, 3rd Street, between Washington Avenue and Missouri Avenue, a road only a block from Washington Avenue Elementary School, registered 291 vehicles per day. East Alameda Street and Stanton Street was a meager 91 vehicles per day. Lower yet, Kentucky and West Bland registered 86 vehicles per day. In the south of town, we see other small numbers. The corner of East Martin and Gale Harris, a road next to Sidney Gutierrez Charter School, and catty corner to the corner of Eastern New Mexico University Roswell Health Services Center, had 488 vehicles per day. University Boulevard and Walker, 5 blocks north of EMUR's administrative building, had 248 vehicles per day. Taken within the broader context, the traffic that goes over 9th Street is not unusual or out of place to establish that it is no longer being reasonably used by the public. To say otherwise would be to open up, perhaps, a majority of minor roads in Roswell to vacation or for lack of public use. Petitioner's study also notes that according to numbers supplied exclusively by the petitioner, 88% of the traffic on 9th Street is attributable to their own operations. This overlooks 2 facts. Number 1, petitioners, employees and customers are in fact members of the public. And number 2, 12% of the use is still there, the public use. That must be considered in broader and more inclusive than the mere use by abutting property owners. Streets are dedicated to the public use. Finally, we touch on one other issue. The city engineer noted that there is a savings to be had by not maintaining this street. To accept this logic is carried out to its rational end. It would be proper to close every street in Roswell, as they all have costs to the city. The appropriate approach would be to compare maintenance costs against use relative to similar situated streets, but that is something that is not presented by the petitioner or contemplated by the engineer. Given the street numbers above the applicant's materials, there is no reason to think that maintenance of 9th Street is more expensive than any of the other streets that have similar or fewer vehicle per day counts. Based on all the material provided by the petitioner, we cannot in good conscience find that there is no existing municipal use. To determine otherwise would leave open a significant number of city streets to abandonment or vacation. The street or alley cannot be vacated for private use, i.e. for the purpose of devoting it to exclusive use and benefit of a private person or corporation. But it may only be vacated to promote public welfare.
Okay, so that's where we are. We felt that, we met with them. They presented their case, and so I think we can go ahead and allow, who wants to speak first on behalf of this, Mr. Gross? Come to the microphone, please, so everybody can hear it. There's somebody, Mr. Hicks first. Mr. Hicks? Well, yes, he was here, okay, that's fine. But I just was calling them the order which they signed up. Mr. Hicks.
Evening, Mayor, Council, Scott Hicks, Smith Engineering, acting as the agent on behalf of Roswell Ford. As you all know, we're here in continuance of our case last month. There was a couple items that we're not aware of that we needed to do, or the council wanted us to take care of before they could make an informed decision, so we've done that. I would like to address a couple of things that Mr. Cole mentioned before I get into some other points. I did talk to him today. I was not given, or I didn't request a copy of that letter, so I didn't see every specific item that he addressed, or hadn't heard it until just now. But a couple of things I'd like to just point out. The traffic counts on 9th Street were done over a week, from a Wednesday through a Tuesday. And that average was 250 cars or vehicles per day. And we never said that there weren't any other vehicles than the Ford employees or people using Ford for business or deliveries. There are some, but there's very few. If you look at the numbers that they provided us for their business, and it is about 12% based on those numbers. And again, we're talking about essential. So, and that's why I included 8th Street's count for comparison, because 8th Street is just one block south, and it was at 382, I believe, vehicles per day, per the MDOT website. Just to show you that even with the traffic on 9th, it was about 2/3 of that on 8th Street. So essential, meaning that any of those cars that were using 9th to get from Maine to Virginia or vice versa could also use 8th, 10th, or any of the other streets in the area. So we're not saying that there's not any other cars doing that. It's just the essential uses is what we're looking at. There are other streets that they can do that. So that's why there was only that street. I also included the numbers for Virginia and Maine, because those are the two streets that bound 9th Street and, in the corridor we're talking about, just to give you an idea of the amount of traffic that is on both of those streets relative to 9th. Very small number of vehicles use 9th Street and compared to those streets, obviously. So that's the reason for the tight comparison. I didn't go, all over town looking for comparable streets. We were just trying to keep it in the area that we're talking about. As I believe there was a comment made by one of the councilors last month that we don't have traffic counts on 9th. So that was the core a reason for getting this together was so you had some traffic counts on the night, and we have those now. So that's why it's kind of, limited to just those streets in the area. Okay, so going on with what we have done since last month, we met with an appraiser. Toby got on, and you'll hear more about this. Toby got on the phone the next day after the meeting and set up getting an appraisal done. And the week after that, he was here. He flew into town. Toby and I met with him on site. We walked 9th Street from one side to the other and both alleys with him. We were with him about 2.5 hours that evening, Thursday night. And then they prepared their appraisal, which you all have a copy of right now. And that appraised value for that right-of-way, that being called real property, is about $14,000. And Roswell Ford paid about $11,000 to get that done. So they have already invested quite a bit of money, obviously, in that. And are willing to pay that amount to get that part of it done and over with. So that is done. If you think about it too, it's about 0.9 acres that the appraiser lists in there for the area, with the alley and the utilities that are in there that are going to stay in there just like they are now, and the setbacks, if this was to be looked at as a lot of its own for development, you're probably looking at about half an acre at the most. So really, that's about $14,000 for half an acre. And as I stated, and we presented last month, what we're proposing is easements for the alleys, for utility and access for both parties on either side of that alley. And then having one 20-foot dedicated access easement from Maine to Virginia that will stay open and always remain open for through traffic. Now, so the difference becomes it's not public right-of-way, but there still will be access for emergency vehicles for the other owner there on the other side, Mr. Rhodes. So it's not limiting any traffic moving that direction. It's just no longer a street. The other 40 feet will be dedicated as quick lanes for service. And that's the whole purpose for doing this, to vacate that 60 feet to get enough property there to use for those quick lanes. And it will become one-way traffic from Maine to Virginia. That will also, safety comes into play there, because no longer will there be a left-hand turning movement out of 9th Street onto Maine. So that's a plus there. So yeah, we put them together. Those are in your packets. I just want you to think about the word essential. With the other streets in that area that do the same thing that 9th does, there's no utilities in that street. There's nothing else planned for that street. The folks that use it, even myself, if I'm not going for it, I'm using that street, I can go to any of those other streets, 400 foot one way or the other, and still get to where I wanted to go between Maine and Virginia. There's a lot more that we could have done with a study, but I wanted to keep it focused in the area, especially with the time that we had of the area of the project itself. So if there's any questions on that, please do let me know, and we'll answer those. But that's in a nutshell. The other thing about the savings, it's not a savings that's not going to be spent somewhere else on another road. That's what we're trying to say. When we say we're saving the city $38,000, that was the number that Mr. Nahar had in his letter. It's just that's $38,000 that the city can put on the other street. The maintenance for that section now will become the responsibility of Roswell Ford, and they will maintain it. And they have plans to repave it and do some more concrete work. They've already done a substantial amount of concrete work from Maine on the south side of 9th Street, from Maine to the alley. If you go by there, you'll see that. So then they will be taking over maintenance to that, for that portion of that road and that street for you. So that's what we meant by savings of $38,000. So I'll stand for any questions or any comments that we have that may come up after, we hear from Mr. Goldman and Mr. Gross. So please feel free to let me know if there's anything else I can provide.
We'll just kind of wait till we get everybody up,
Okay.
and we'll hear all the testimony.
All right, thank you.
If we could, Mr. Gross or Mr. Crummell, who wants to go next? Mr. Gross.
Toby Gross, 1316 Alicia Lane. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council, once again. I don't know where to turn at this point. We've done everything that we were asked to do. We've had it appraised, we've had the street count done, we've done everything we could do. And now the city has fallen back on, they don't deem it, they deem it necessary for the city's purpose. We all know it's mostly us. We're gonna build something over there, some more. We're gonna create more traffic, more confusion. It's gonna be a dangerous situation. Turning left out onto the state highway is already dangerous. I don't know what else to say since you've turned to this, but why didn't somebody just tell us no a long time ago? Why are we being pushed down the road and delaying our project by month after month? You know, we wouldn't have had it appraised if we didn't think that it was something that we should have been doing for you. That's what we got. And I know that you don't respect the appraisal, was the opinion I got in the meeting the other day. Why are we back here if the answer was no?
It's your choice to come and speak and present before the council, and that's all. If
Okay.
you choose not to, that's fine. It's a courtesy we give you.
I appreciate the
You
courtesy.
have a right to be in favor of what you're in favor of. I make my decisions for what I believe and what I see, and I'm sure.
But the decisions continue to change on us, and that's bad business. That's all that is.
That's fine. You're entitled to your opinion. Mr. Crummell.
Mr. Mayor, City Council, you know, I don't know what to add except to ask you, because I think it's you and the city, what is your title?
City manager.
City manager, that you come up with this, deem it or you deem it essential. What is there, well, I should ask, is there anything we can do to get this project through?
Mr. Crummell, we're here to look at about the use of the streets. And they asked if there were enough people to use that street. It asked us about our opinion if it was essential, and had enough usage to be claimed a city street. And in my opinion, I felt it did. I felt it was there. That's my opinion. I can't tell you why. When I looked at the work that I saw there, in the appraisal, some of that concerned me. I thought, when your people came, they told us they would only give 10,000, and we told them that was even below their appraisal, your appraisal from your individual. I honestly, when I look at that, in my heart of hearts, I think that the use of that street is worth more, in my opinion, than $14,000. And your people came and they cut it down, we're saving you $38,000 here, and they said, we'll give you $10,000. And I think the $14,000, in my opinion, of a piece of property in that area of town, and that whole street, the use of that whole street, in my opinion, is worth more than $14,000 to the people of this city. I think there's enough use there to justify that. I have a great deal of concern about what happens when you take this third of the traffic or whatever and put it on 8th Street, or where it goes, that's also gonna put more problems there. There's no stoplight on 8th Street. That's another thing I think is an issue. If there was, that might make it easier to have left turns off of 8. But I look at that and, you know, you're getting a piece of property that the people of Roswell have paid for, including curbs and gutters, and all that has been there, and I think it's, the value of that to come at $14,000, I thought was extremely too low. And at that time, I said, is there something else we could trade for 9.8 acres or for some other piece of property that might have more public use, that might alleviate or help other issues? And suggested a thing over there, and it was not available, was not to be considered by your people, and because you had other uses, that's fine. And I didn't come up and call you or question you like I was questioned about where I came up with mine. That's where I came up with mine. And if Mr. Gross likes it, fine. If he doesn't, I'm perfectly in tune with that. He has his right, and I have a right to my opinion, and I used it.
And I appreciate you saying that, but I'm a little confused, you know, due respect, Mr. Mayor. You say that you're deeming it or essential street, but yet your whole statement to me was based upon that we're not paying enough money. It's not whether it's deemed essential or non-essential. You don't think we're paying enough. My report back from Toby was, yes, he offered you 10,000 because that was something that the city, the mayor could sign off on without approval of the council. But we also came back and said, what do you want us to pay? Do you want us to pay 20 grand? Then we'll pay that. We have made that offer to you, and I'd like the rest of the council to know that we did not stop at what the appraisal was. But your whole summation to me is that we're not paying enough. Not that it's an essential or non-essential street.
In the movement of the vehicles that are on, that go down that street, and you move them down to 8th Street, that compounds a problem at 8th Street as well. And, you know, that's my opinion. The traffic amount there, I think that there are a number of people have a number of rights to use a street that has been dedicated for this street since 1891 or whatever it was.
I agree with you.
And they have a right to that, to take that away, although maybe it's only from 150 people or 200 people, to take that away is not something that I think we should just do. This would set a very dangerous precedent on what we do for other pieces of property with that low a traffic count, or even that high a traffic count. We have a number of streets in Roswell that don't have that, and you know, somebody could petition to vacate all other kinds of things without looking at it. And that's how it got this far. This is the first time I got to see that. We did see some things. One time there were going to be an awning over that, sometimes other things. But there are other people behind you that have other pieces of property. Yes, I understand that no one filed a written protest. I understand that. But that was my opinion on how my beliefs are.
But the title of those properties, I also own one on 7th and Main, where the old Honda store was. On that deed, that goes back to the Chisholm Ranch. I mean, that's what was on that. This is how long ago these properties were dedicated to the city. And I would ask you, on some of these other streets that you cited, so if you had some kind of an economic windfall coming to Roswell, that somebody wanted to build another building, but they needed to close a street or two, would you consider that or not? If it was for the good of Roswell, you know, and making Roswell better. I just got emails today about could I attend a meeting on downtown Roswell and what we can do to beautify and to make it more. I think anything that we've done, we've tried to improve the city and the properties in which we have. So I don't think that's an issue. I hear what you're saying. You want to hold on to this essential or non-essential, but yet today I've heard you say that, you're not paying enough. So if we paid $100,000, is it still non-essential? Or is it still essential? Because only you can answer that. Because you brought other things up to Toby. And you brought them up and insinuated here, what kind of lighting are you going to put down there? Hey, we're going to put it in the lighting that you guys are going to approve. You mentioned something about a project we did 5 years ago, the Nissan store, that maybe our lighting was not compliant with the night sky ordinance. Hey, that was a local electrical engineer that did it. All of those lights are facing away from any residential. We have done whatever we had to do to be good neighbors and wherever we're at. But why would that comment even come up if you're not looking for a way to prohibit us from this street? Why would you even talk about the lighting? The fact is that it's essential or non-essential. It doesn't matter what kind of lighting we're going to put. Then it shouldn't matter how much money we're going to pay for it. But that is what you just told this council and the people here, that we offered you the appraised price, which is, with all due respect, a lie. We did offer that, but we came back and said, what does it take? So we weren't stuck on that number. If there was something else going in on one of these streets that are 2 city blocks long, and you have if that's where you decided to put the new museum or something, I guess that's a whole different issue. The city has the right to close whatever streets they want at that point. Because it's a municipality. I'm just trying to say, hey, you're going to leave me with some other options. We can stay there, or we can move our Ford store out of the city, and we can move it into some kind of county position, property. You already stated here today, well, you're not getting any of the tax on the gross receipts tax that we sell on automobiles, but you are on all the service. City of Roswell is, okay? And, so there is an economic impact, and we're already spent about $3 million just getting it up to where it's at. And today I had a nice conversation with Ford. We're probably $10 million away from a completed project. Those $10 million will be spent on local contractors that they will have impact on this city and the people that work there. We're not bringing in, and again, I'm probably stepping on toes, but we're not bringing people in from Albuquerque to build it. But that's what I think the city would do if you're going to rebuild the convention center or something. We're trying to keep our money here. I've been here 30 years. The first person I went and met when I moved to this town was your brother. He was mayor at that time. And I went up to the office and I said who I was. Hey, I'm hoping to be a good neighbor. I'm hoping to do things the right way. And I think we have. 30 years worth of building, which I don't know, the real estate assets are probably in excess of $25, $35 million in Roswell. And I just don't know what we've done to upset you. Because it looks to me like it's personal.
No, it's not.
Well,
You want to make it that, but it's not. You can do whatever you want.
Right, I know. So, so it was available if we traded you some land. And if you want to trade that land that I have on West 2nd, I'll do it with you at appraisal to appraisal. If the city wants to do that. I'm in right now telling you, okay, then you can use it. I heard people up here talking about your FEMA and about how you gave all the statistics on how fast the flow of water is on there. Then take that land that I own and build yourself a reservoir out there in back of my Toyota store. but it's not going to be at the same appraised value as this street. We'll get an appraisal. If the city wants to pay for it, there's a way out. Stop the flooding. You're concerned about that. You know, I was looking for a way, if there was a way to get some other kind of movement or look at some other ways to look for public use or whatever else, just to see whatever might be out there that we could find some level of agreement on. That was turned down and wasn't available. And we've done that, we've gone down the road, and if that's where we are. When we looked about this and looked about the appraisal, and that's where it is. You can try to make this between me and you if you want, that's up to you. I was concerned, and I thought that appraisal price was low, and as I look at it, we get, 25 cents a square foot for everything we lease at the airport every year. Mr. Mayor. And this was about 35 cents a square foot or something, so. Mr. Mayor, whatever. I agree with you, okay, but I did not hold my hat on that appraised value. I asked, what does it take? Well, I'm not trying to buy it, I'm not trying to steal it from the city, but we've had 3 accidents in the last 6 months, there are 1 fatality. I mean, you guys all had the report that the state engineer says that they would love not to have left-hand turns out of there. They were for this. And it's still going to be an open access one way, but there's an open access for people that want to go from 8th Street to Virginia. There's still going to be open access. I'm not the big bad wolf that's cutting, the poor independent person from using that street. And yes, we're going to put up more lights and stuff. Right now, those 3-4 blocks in there are part of the biggest problem this city has as homeless people. Let's put some lights down there. Let's make it bright. There's no homes around there. We're not affecting any residential. The only one that really uses that, and you've got some studies here, but you've got the propane company in the back there. Once, twice, and maybe 3 times a day, they send a truck there. But they don't even go out and use Main Street because of the left-hand turn lane. So those are some, I would ask you to do a little bit more homework on who uses it. So I don't think that we're going to get past it. I think you've hung your hat on, hey, it's an essential road and we're not going to budge from it. Is that what I'm hearing from this tonight? I made a decision in that matter, yes. Over what I saw and what the evidence that was presented to me, I made that decision, yes. But yet the first night we were here, you guys wanted a continuance because Mr. Nahar was up here and you kind of fried him, in my opinion, up here. Well, this isn't in the report. And Mr. Hildebrand was saying, well, this isn't in the report. I can't make a decision on this. This isn't there. So we got all that information from him. You could have made a decision that night and said, it doesn't matter what it is. It's going to be an essential street. But once we got the appraisal, once we got the traffic analysis, then it's like, hey, buddy, can you find something in there in the city? And there's something else. Don't touch it. Okay, that's what you're, okay, yeah, okay. I won't, don't forget it. Okay, no, yes, please. And when I have no control over what other people say, what Councilman Hildebrand says, because he asked a question of anyone, that's not my fault. But that's the reason why we are here a month later, because we asked for a continuance to get those 2 things done. That's what you asked us to do. Why would you ask us to do things and spend our money if you knew that you weren't going to do it? I didn't have that. No, I didn't. You didn't have your homework done, but you expected me to have mine done on that day. I had not made a determination about which way I was going to go necessarily. There were other people on this council that voted other than me. There are. A number of times, if you look, I don't even vote
because I only vote in the case of a tie. So I do have opinions about things, I do express them. I think that's what my job is, to express them, and I do that, and I will continue to do that for whatever the council.
That's what you're elected for. So whatever your opinions are, but in this case, it won't even go to a vote. So what you're saying is going to override anything else that any counselor may or may not want to see this happen. You're going to say, we think this street is an essential street. Regardless of anybody
That's
else.
your beliefs, your entire.
Well, that's what I'm hearing you say. Tell me if that's not what you said.
You know, I'm not.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, as the parliamentarian for the body, this is getting into argument and not actually presenting facts for the council to make any determinations about that.
And I'm asking, what can we do to make a deal?
I think we've made a decision as it was determined that how we were supposed to make a decision according to the law. I think we've honored our decision and made our decision according to the laws of the state of New Mexico. And I'm sorry if they don't go your way.
Yeah, I get it. It's all right. Hey, we win some, we lose some. Thanks for hearing me out.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yes, sir. Mr. Hayes.
Thank you. A couple more points real quick. You said something in your chat about vacating the street for a business. Can you repeat that sentence in that?
I'm not sure what you're talking
Where
about.
you said streets.
The ordinance?
Yes, no, in your letter, where you said we don't vacate streets or rights of way for the use of personal or like a business. Is that in there? I didn't read that. I guess what I'm trying to say is, so in 2016, we were in front of the council for a very similar vacation of East 16th Street from Atkinson east 400 feet. It was right in front of Dotson Wholesale Lumber. And they petitioned the council, went through P&Z and the council to have that street vacated. Same width, same length. And the P&Z recommended approval to do so, and the council approved vacating that right of way for the sole purpose of and use for Dotson Wholesale Lumber. The other one that comes to mind is the alley between Buffalo Wild Wings and the hotel, between 8th and 7th Street. That alley was vacated for the purpose of access for Buffalo Wild Wings and also the hotel. The utilities are in that alley, and it became an easement for access and utilities. So this is nothing new. This is not a precedent which we would set tonight if you approve to vacate the right of way tonight. This does happen, and it's happened here in Roswell more than once, and not just for the city's purpose, but for the use of businesses, and therefore the public that uses those businesses. I think that's very important to remember. That's a fact. The other thing I'd like to ask, real quick, if I may, you were concerned about traffic not on 9th now, going to 8th Street, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to ask the opinion of the city engineer, what he thinks about that, if we're only talking about another 100 cars per day. Is that something I can ask your opinion on?
Sure. Any
other traffic related?
Mr. Hicks, I make the decision, we've made a decision. We listened to his testimony the other day, and I've already had one counselor criticize because he asked him some questions. Whether it's gonna be me, I'm not into arguing all night.
Well, I understand that, but you brought up your concern. I think your own city engineer might be able to help answer that.
Mr. Mayor, again, as the parliamentarian, it is the obligation of the applicant to provide all the evidence up front. Calling upon the city to present evidence on his behalf at the last hour would be irregular.
But not acceptable. I'm not saying on my behalf. I think it would just be clarification of the city streets, use of the city streets with traffic.
No.
Shouldn't take long.
Mr. Nahar, I don't want to put you on the spot. You may say whatever you choose. You can choose to answer. You can choose not to answer. That's fine.
Do you solemnly swear to add or affirm that the testimony you give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under penalty of perjury? I do. Mayor, council.
This is an interesting case. This is a planning and zoning variance case. A planning and zoning variance case is just what it says. It's a variance of some of the other things that you normally don't have. So this is a planning and zoning variance case that the governing body, councilors, have the final ruling, as I understand. So to answer a couple of questions that have come up, and some statements, the 33,000, 38,000, whatever that number was, that was based on the mill and field prices that we just did around town. And we're gonna just pay the same price to do 8th Street, 7th Street, 6th Street, all the other streets per square yard, whether 9th Street's involved or not. So those are actual numbers, okay? And that's part of the maintenance. As far as 8th Street and having a traffic light, that's been come up before, and twice New Mexico DOT did the warrant studies, and both times it did make, similar to 23rd Street over there by Applebee's. That's always been a problem in the area. So what you have before you is planning and zoning variance case. I'm up here as the city engineer, and yes, I've taken a lot of bullets, but ethically, as a city engineer, I have to make decisions, make opinions based on my professional knowledge and as a professional engineer. And in these cases, P&Z, I just did testimony in another case Tuesday. I always give testimony. They always ask the city engineer. That is my job. Okay? So, as I see here, this planning and zoning variance, Mr. Smith Engineering is correct. We've done this in lots of places. I'm surprised that this happened. And so let me just give, as a city engineer, I have to take a big picture, wide lens, and whatever I'm looking at, planning and zoning case, whether it be a home business, whether it be vacating an alley, whatever it is, I have to look at them all, looking fine point, and then step back, wide lens, okay? That's my job. Sometimes you guys like it, sometimes you don't. Just like when I give an estimate for a project, most of the time you don't like the estimates because they're high. So let me just elaborate on the traffic, and that's all I'm gonna talk about really with the traffic right now. Let's take that wide lens. This project's downtown Main Street. Downtown Main Street that was set up in the 1890s, 1900s, whatever.
Let's get to the point. I mean, we've been doing this a long time, so that's fine.
So they're about 400 feet apart, the blocks. Downtown traffic, you've seen it all back up on the lights. I think we've all experienced that. The DOT since the 1990s has wanted to take out the light at 3rd and 4th. Because the traffic backs up, because the blocks are too small for the modern standards that we have. Okay? 2024, I think most of you were around 2024 on council. Safe Streets for All. One of the projects is to close 3rd Street to traffic and just for pedestrian only. 3rd and Main. Safe Streets for All. Okay? 2024. So 9th Street is 400 feet to go 8th Street or 9th, to 8th Street or 10th Street, 400 feet apart. Most of us are supposed to be driving 30 miles an hour, okay? 44 foot per second, okay? It's gonna take you a 9-second delay to go from 9th Street to 8th, 9th Street to 10th, okay? 2019 traffic study. We did, and we were doing another vacation for another business that wanted to buy some property and required a street. 2019, React East Wells Street, serving mostly businesses, residential in the base. We had 453 vehicles a day and almost equal going east and west. my recommendation, council didn't pay attention to it. But what we did, the people at the base, we cut off one of their entrances to go to, probably to the Prina, or probably to Artesia in the oil field. So it's funny how the base people, anyway. So 2025, they did another study. Yeah, almost 90% of it is for their study, and it makes sense. Even in my letter, most of the traffic's there for Ford, okay? As a planning and zoning and as council, I would assume that you guys are looking for development. Okay, so we're looking for development. With the flood, we're looking for healing. Healing from the flood. You know, I've been around a long time. Sometimes I'm a gruffy engineer. That's what I do, okay? But my experience tells me the convention center, the museum, anything that the city's gonna do, we're 5 years out from the event date. So that'd be October 19th, 2024. So 2029 to have something completely built and open to replace a lot. And that's just what it is. So again, that's what I have as far as the traffic, responding to the cost, responding to the 8th Street light. And council, you are the governing body. I stand for any questions.
Councilor Arnold.
Just a simple question. Considering the actual, somewhat of a decision I think that's been made, and the petitioner saying they want a one-way service lane, is it possible to make the street a one-way street done by the city? Would that actually benefit all? I mean, does it have to actually be sold if it still has use to the city? And it is actually currently and I've seen it, very dangerous way to exit. But what about making the whole street one way from Maine to Virginia?
Well, they've done it as an easement, because as I understand, they want to use some of the property for their quick lanes or however they're going to do it. But an easement, if they're going to make it easement, it still has to be signed one way. And the DOT, I trusted the DOT if they've looked at that, they don't want left turns. You know, they look at a lot of stuff. Again, DOT looked at 8th Street for a light, and it didn't warrant. But
I don't think you're answering your question. She's asking if the city made it one way, would that
If we actually declare.
we would have to make it one way if it's an easement, because that's the direction that they're
No, I'm saying we don't sell it, period. If we maintain it as ours, can we actually just go through the process of making it a one-way street to benefit the, declaration of the city manager and mayor, and then also, our business?
Okay, so a one-way street, would you be talking the whole full width or just a partial width?
The whole full width.
Okay.
Gotta take care of the left turn.
I mean, I think everybody wins with us just turning the whole street into a one-way, and I don't know what that process is, and I don't know that that can be solved right here, but it might be able to be done in infrastructure.
The one-way streets, the last time we did it, we did the one-way streets for when we were building Main Street. And we had to take it to council, what I remember, and we made Virginia one direction, we made Richardson one direction, and that was that.
But that was a whole huge section.
That was a corridor, that was the corridor.
That was.
But, I mean, that was the last time we've done one-way streets. Other than when they come up with new construction, then we'll look at it.
There's one east of the railroad tracks.
Right, well,
I mean-
I'm just saying, I'm just offering what I could consider a very simple.
Just like I explained to you last month, when Buffalo Wild Wings and then what was it, Hardee's or whatever was gonna go across the street from McDonald's, I said, no, you're not gonna have any access off of Main Street, because I didn't want double less coming from both sides of the business. So that's when I said, you have to use the alley as an access Or in turn, that's what had to have the alley be vacated for the safety of the people, not having double lefts, or, it's a bad terminology, but people understand it, suicide turning lanes.
Well, yeah, and I know exactly what you're talking about. I've used most of everything you're talking about. But what I'm saying now is that we are kind of at a standstill, and I'm offering a consideration that can be discussed later on, past tonight. I think, because, I mean, I'm just throwing it out there so that Smith Engineering and Crumlin can actually maybe consider that as an actual option. I mean, we're not.
Well, to answer your question, we can turn any street one way for the most part. I just have to look up the process, and I think it would start with infrastructure and then take it to council just to show it.
I would like that, thank you.
You go, Councilor,
Let me address that. You look at their plan, what they're talking about a quick lane, you know what a quick lane is?
Yes, I actually,
Yeah, so what they're talking about, if you turn that into a one-way street, would not allow the construction of that quick lane, which is a loop facility, to be placed, correct?
That's correct.
I would see, that's not what's been totally told to you, is what's really gonna go on there.
no,
That,
I understand what's going on.
yeah, so you turning it into a one-way will not fulfill what they wanna do.
But he's an engineer, and I'm saying that we as a city can offer a solution of creating safety that they're saying does not exist, of creating the actual fact that that's our property as stated by the mayor, and it's in use. So why don't we actually have a conversation of how we can develop something that fits a one-way street and everybody has part of the conversation? That's just my suggestion. It's late, I've offered it.
No, it's just that won't fulfill what they wanna accomplish.
Yeah, Councilor Arnold, that's come I asked the question, partial right of way. So they could build on part of it, and then part of it would be, so we would share, and then that partial right of way, so to speak, would be a one-way.
Yeah.
next, Council Lady Halverson.
So I think that partial right of way is what brought the appraisal down so much, from 230,000 to 14. So that's a huge discount, but I'm not an engineer, so I would think, you know, Councilor Arnold's idea, you could stripe the street, it's wide enough, what, for 3 lanes? Could you stripe like a parking
I
lane?
think, as I understand, and Mr. Hicks could correct me, if they're gonna have it a one-way, they have to have it striped and signed.
Well, so I said, if the city does it, we could do striping like a parking lane close to where you want to do it quickly, but leave the center area open for traffic. That's just a thought, but again, I'm not an engineer, so.
Okay. So now, okay, let's go. Councilman, who's next? Councilman Corn?
Yes. Me?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, I was privileged to be here for the last meeting. I was under heavy drugs. You would have liked me if I'd been here. But maybe you don't like me here anyway. But
Are you wanting a vote on that?
whatever you think's appropriate.
I just asked him for a friend.
I'm not gonna torpedo myself. If you wanna jump in, get after it. If you wanna fire the shot, get after it. But anyway, the point that I'm gonna make has nothing to do with Mr. Crumlin per se, except he's the driving issue here, or the driving party. But I started going through this large packet of information. I got it Monday afternoon, thanks to Councilman Hildebrand, making sure that I got a copy of it. So I was reading through this thing, and I looked on page 243 in your handout that was done by Cushman Wakefield Western Incorporated. And third line up from the bottom, we're talking about the Turnkey Ventures primary hub, and it says for mobile home. Now, I don't know if that was a typo or not, but what they're building out there is not mobile home.
Right.
Modular would have been a much better use.
That's 234, not 240.
Okay, well, now we all know why I'm not counting. Then I noticed on 237, We're listed electricity as Central Valley Electric Corporation. I think it's Excel. And I also noted in the previous pages before I got to this, that there had been correspondence with Excel. Now, I don't know if they were privileged to all that correspondence or not. Then I looked at the flood zone, which is the next page, 238, and it talks about flood zone that was dated September 25th, 2009. Now, I would ask, is there anybody here that doesn't think we're gonna get a new flood zone here pretty soon? Just think, Harry, you're the flood.
I'm the floodplain manager,
Yeah.
and I would suspect that we're gonna get the floodplain zones widened.
So, are you 80%?
90%.
Thank you. The right answer.
And I would say that Ford probably realizes that, or Mr. Crumman, and they're taking a big chance. We're putting it out there.
And then,
But that's their prerogative.
the other thing, whenever I started going through this traffic count, I was absolutely amazed that many vehicles used that street, because I avoid it like the plague already. You know, I mean, I just don't go there. And then I got back to the actual dollars and cents on the appraisal. I don't have that. But I question all the discounts that were listed.
There were lots of discounts on discounts.
Lots of discounts that I didn't understand, nor did I have time to inquire. Because first off, I didn't know who I needed to inquire. But there's just discount on discount on discount whenever you look at that appraisal sheet. And I don't know what that is. I mean, I just.
I can't answer those, Councilman.
Well, I know, you're not the right guy. On page 261, I'm told.
260, 260.
I ran out of things to mark on pages, Mr. Mayor, I apologize. Usually a little bit prepared. Well, it actually starts on 260, when it's discounted to 80%, middle 20 feet with access easement. I don't understand what that really means. And then you go to 264, and they've got discounted to 80%, discounted 80%, discounted 90%, discounted 99, discounted 80%, and the first one is discounted 80%. Okay, why are we discounting it? I don't know. So I've got more questions, and I appreciate some of the conversation tonight, because I had very little knowledge of this thing. Did I know if something was going on? Yes. But I haven't talked to anybody about this. This is an independent review of the documents that were presented to us in our packet. And so when I find blatant errors early in a report, then it's a lot easier to discount the stuff at the last. And so I've got more questions than I've heard answers for tonight, and I don't think anybody that was here could answer those questions.
That is correct.
Okay. All right, any further comments or questions?
I don't comment, but it's not a question for him, I do.
Okay.
I have a question.
Councilwoman.
Or I don't know who it's for. So, maybe for you,
All right.
maybe it's for Mr. I don't
All
know.
right, you're done.
Thank you.
So, my question here is, where are we? Are we, don't get to vote on this, is it no longer a hearing because of the letter that we received just a few, as we sat down? Or are we not open for conversation anymore, it's done because the mayor and the city managers deemed it essential, or is it not essential, or is it not enough money? I'm kind of, that question is, I feel like it's a fair question for the permanent question. Is it about the money, or is it valuable to the city? So where are we now? Are we just because they made that letter, the council no longer gets to vote on this? It's just because they said it, and so they said it's essential, so the council no longer votes on it? Is that what it is, Mr. Jackson?
Mr. Mayor, Madam Councilor, no, the council absolutely still votes. So there's kind of three things going on at the same time, which is what makes this a little goofy. So the first is, this would be a real property transaction, and as you recall, we have been dinged repeatedly for not doing it, not keeping it kosher. So, in 2403, what the council did was, it delegated its fact-finding to the manager and the mayor. Well, and the mayor sort of has his own independent as the executive, and the manager is the highest ranking official that serves at will to you. So they came up with that determination, and now that is presented to the governing body, which gets us to the case. If the council had determined that it's not essential, like for what we have in our next item, you guys then vote and say, because this is a vacation, one, is it in the public interest? Two, do we think it's a fair value? So you vote anyway, because you were the governing body. But if you were to vote against if you were to vote to sell the property, it would be in violation of your own ordinance about the procedure to follow. So you can always vote to violate your procedure. I don't recommend that as the lawyer ever.
Okay, so.
Yes, I know that sounds goofy, Councilor Arnold.
It does, because then why do we get here if we would be voting against, if we felt, and we voted against the policy because we just now hearing that policy. So it's just strange to put those people in this position, and they're just now hearing the policy, and we're just now hearing the policy.
The determination, that I can give some more background on. So the applicant was told months ago that the mayor and manager had to review this, and that in reviewing it, an appraisal would also be necessary because this was a property transaction.
Why weren't we involved why didn't somebody from the city get to be involved in that appraisal? Is that just the way it's done?
Yeah, so it's the applicant's burden, and so typically the city doesn't pay for.
I'm just saying, otherwise we would have those 80% discount questions, because somebody from the city would have been there to understand and say why they get 80% off of something that don't belong to them. But, okay, go ahead.
No, and that's the reason why I stated earlier that it's the applicant's job to bring the evidence here. So if they didn't bring somebody to defend an appraisal, and councilors can't ask about it.
Right, because we don't have nobody to back up or answer those questions, so that's not a fair appraisal to me, because we don't get to ask questions on it.
Right.
Okay, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, and so that's so let's say, just to walk you through how this could have gone, if the mayor and manager determined that there was not a municipal purpose, then you guys would have to determine whether it's a public benefit to get rid of it anyway. So there's a difference between public benefit and municipal purpose.
Okay.
Legally speaking. And then the second part is you would say, okay, it is a public benefit, what's the price? So the council would be determining the amount at that point. So the council could, because of the way council procedures work, you guys can vote against what the mayor and manager said, but you would be violating your own ordinance in doing it.
You know, there's just one thing, because obviously I'm the villain, but it's fine. When I looked at this appraisal, and it came from California, and I had some questions upon it. And I looked, if you look on page 258, the value, as is value of the land conclusion, value per square foot, okay? And indicated value, if you lose the indicated value at 575 per square foot, they had 582, but okay, if it was 575, this value, and actually on a square foot basis, it was 582. But so if you look at that, and the value here, it was $230,000, and it went down to 14. That is about 5%. That piece of property, that street, went from a value of $230,000 to $14,000, which is 5% of the value of this property that we're talking about.
So where did the 200
So-
come from there?
Where did it go? Well, they were
Where did
just,
it come from? Where did it start? The 230, that's what.
that was what, in this appraisal,
Appraisal started at.
that's where the appraiser said the value was.
It's a road in the alleys.
The road, so that 230 is that road and the 2 alleys that they're trying to make, they want us to vacate. That was $230,000.
For the, yeah.
Correct?
As his land value concludes.
Page 258.
258.
No, I saw the number, I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't losing my mind, that you go from 230 to 14. I thought that was something that they decided that just for the sidewalk.
So that's what the value of this paper was from the guy from California that thought it was served by Central Valley Electric. I mean, it's been a while since Central Valley Electric's never been over there.
Well, the other thing, Mr. Mayor, just to point out what Councilor Corn was saying, in the cover letter, they refer to 39,535 square feet, but then they get down, the property is noted as 35,535 feet. And in their own language, they tell you they have a quality control review. And so, without local knowledge, what Councilor Corn says is they think we're still on Central Valley Electric Co-op. I question what their quality control review is, because right on the front page, they don't even have the right number. They contradict themselves.
And, you know,
So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I don't
just want
have
to bring that up.
thing about this, I'm just saying, streets and easements and all that use, to the people who are accompanied to using them, they're invaluable. And when all of a sudden you can't go down some way, that is something that's been a long established practice, and I think that to me has a value. But I don't think that I can see, looking at the appraiser, going from 230,000, whatever it was, dollars to 14. 6% or 5%, what it is, but you know, that's, to me, that's me. I've had enough. I've been accused of everything under the world. I've had enough.
You're not the bad guy.
I'd like to call the question.
I got one.
Okay.
One thing to ask Mr. Hicks. Sir, when you talk about your existing traffic conditions, you said that there were 251 vehicles per day.
That was the average weekday.
Average weekday.
Use of.
And then on the weekend, you said it went to 117 vehicles,
That's
correct? Which tells me the weekend usage is 46% of the weekly rate. So how does that, explain to me how that this becomes not essential? Because when I went and asked the question last time of Mr. Nahar, which wasn't, the information was not in our packet, but explain to me why 117 vehicles is not essential.
Well, I'm not saying it's not essential or essential. I'm just saying that that's what the counters recorded.
Right, but you're saying you're saying then the road is not essential because there's 117 vehicles on the weekend that go down that road.
Yeah, that average was for Saturday and Sunday, and Ford is open on Saturday.
The service department's not open all day on Saturday.
Yeah, but Ford is open on Saturday, so they
The
still have
sales
business.
office is open on
They still have business there, yes.
Yeah, let's get the facts right.
Right, they're open. So some of the folks are still using that to go to Ford and work at Ford.
Right.
What I'm saying.
All I'm trying to say is, you're saying in here 117 vehicles, you didn't say whether it was Saturday, you didn't say it was
Oh,
Sunday.
it's on there, it's in there.
It says
In the appendix.
24-hour average dropped to 117 vehicles per day.
Right.
For over the weekend.
Right.
That's what you're saying.
That was Saturday and Sunday average, yes, sir.
And that's my question. I'm trying to get their facts, and you're telling me your facts aren't right.
No, those are the facts, yes, sir.
Okay, because that's what we're supposed to hear, are facts.
Right, it
Not
just drops
opinion.
off during the weekend as opposed to the weekday.
So tell me why.
Less deliveries, those kinds of things.
Tell me why 117 vehicles using that street when non-business time makes that road not essential. That's what I'm trying to get to.
I would look at Sunday. If you want to look at Sunday, there was 39 cars going east all day.
Summary report.
And 23 going, it's in there.
You should have said that in your,
It's in there.
existing
It's in the
traffic
appendix.
condition report,
It's in there.
but it's not there.
Okay, well, I'm just trying to say that the vehicle count per day is very small on 9th Street compared to the other streets that we were talking about.
If you put that in there, I could get a better understanding of that.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we maintain the street and not vacate it.
Okay,
Well, I have to make a motion, so I move that we maintain the street.
okay, well, we can still, she had made a motion, we can accept that and still have discussion. We haven't stopped the discussion.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Mr. Mayor. So the counselor did call the question and properly attached a motion to it. So you have to vote on whether to
Accept the question.
Accept the question. And that requires 7.
Requires 7 people to pass the motion? Or-
To call the, so first you call the question and then the motion. And she presented the question that would be called, because the only motion right now was to have a public hearing. So now the motion presented is to call the question, and the question is to maintain the street as is.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilor Halverson.
So if we pass this, is Councilor Cortez still gonna be able to ask his question before we vote?
No, but sorry, yeah, the problem is calling the question takes precedence over all other.
That's, I'm listening to the mayor say, I'm sorry, discussion.
He had asked to vote, or asked for voice prior to the call for question.
I'm okay with that.
Thank you. Mr.
Councilor Cortez.
I guess I just have some procedural questions real quick for, I guess, for Chad or Mr. Angela. So I really am a little frustrated with this apparent fait accompli where we have to vote against our own ordinance. It seems like something we should not have to do. But prior to sale, exchange, or donation of real property belonging to the city, such real property shall be determined to be not essential. What is the threshold for not essential? Is it 12%? Is it 15%? What is the threshold that we are using for not essential? Because apparently 12%, if we were considering the traffic study in its whole, that's the interpretation that I have to go with, is that we've decided that 12% non-report use, if that's the real number, which we don't, I think you note in your letter that that's self-reported. So, that, so we don't know, and you note in your letter that too, Mr. Manager, that we're saying 12%. We also, it's a little contradictory because we're also saying that the employees are also a member of the public as our customers. So if we run out the 12%, which means 88% is for Ford, let's just accept that number, which we're just gonna accept it on faith right now. We don't know if it's real, but 88% of that traffic count times 52 a week is quite a few numbers. It's a big number compared to 12%. So I guess I have some grief with, my question is, how do we determine essential? I don't know how we can be at this phase if the ordinance says the mayor and the city manager have to make that determination, and we haven't. Or you've made the determination you've made the determination that's essential, so therefore you're asking us to vote against our own ordinance. Or potentially we've agreed to vote against our own ordinance because we're city councilors. I also go to 202, which is the appraisal. It says that if it were to be made, we do have it does say in our ordinance that, and I guess we're saying we don't want it to be appraised, but it does say in our ordinance that the mayor, the city shall cause the appraisal. So it just seems the ordinance seems a little bit inconsistent, and that's concerning to me. So I guess my question is, what is essential? Because we obviously vacate right-of-ways, and we're obviously going to be in a position where we vacate right-of-ways again. We have this museum, or this not museum, the railroad district redevelopment, which we're trying to encourage. So our ordinance says we should encourage development and commercial development in our railroad district. So, which is it and when? Because I think for the public and the people in our community that are trying to do project work, it's helpful for them to know these thresholds, and that's it. What is the threshold? Is it a moving target? What can they rely on before they even go to these things? And that's what I want to know. What is essential? And what's the threshold?
So, Councilor Cortez, so as the guy who drafted the ordinance, this language is actually picked up from Albuquerque and has been workable since the 1980s. The core of essential, and you're gonna hate this answer, is case by case. Now, where this process in particular went sideways was with P&Z. So P&Z did not alert the applicant to the ordinance until the day before their initial hearing. Now, that said, ignorance of the law is no excuse, and an applicant always carries the burden. But what should have happened is what happened with the Amazon deal that we have coming up next, which is Amazon contacts the city, says we're interested in acquiring property of yours. How do we do this? So we would typically then say, well, what is the property? Let us look at it. And we then say, oh, we use this, or we don't. So in Amazon's case, it was a piece of property from 1988 that's been fallow since then, and we've been actually trying to unload it for as long as I've been alive, effectively. Now, so first they would have come in and said, we will, so we come to, hey, this is a street, how does vacation work? Okay, well, first, the mayor and the manager should start the proceeding would say whether or not the city actually uses it. And if we don't use it, we would then proceed with a appraisal. So when it says shall cause, that doesn't mean that the city shall pay. It just means the city shall make sure that it occurs. So generally speaking, it's, and then the second part too is that the actual declaration of non-essentialness is still made by the council. So, and what's not written in here, but is kind of an underlying principle of law, is that if there's manifest error made by the mayor and manager, say for deeply personal reasons, like, well, I don't know, like the guy who was the applicant killed somebody's child in a car accident years before, so the manager holds it up, then the council can overrule it, but they'd have to make findings about that. But yeah, so I'm sorry I can't give a more satisfactory answer, but generally speaking, you've been here long enough to see that we've done a number of real property transactions and they go smoothly. In this one, the applicant or the requester simply didn't give us information until this week.
Right. And we gave them the determination this week.
We turned around a determination a lot quicker than we normally do because there was a hearing.
Well, I appreciate it. It's just hard to sit here and hear that we will vote against it, but then we'd be violating our ordinance.
Again,
we all swore oaths to
if there's manifest error,
the ordinances of our community. So it's a little tough position to be in, you know. So that's it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Hess. I appreciate you.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask you a question? Mr. Cameron. Dr. Cameron.
Councilor Eichmann, is this something that we can table? I have two questions. So can we table this so we can have better information on making the decision here? I realize we're going against our ordinance, but can this be tabled by the city council until next month?
So and this is something that I unfortunately hadn't thought about when writing this code up for you guys. So this has to be treated like a plat according to the subdivision code. And so the determination has to be presented to the council, and the council shall rule unless there's one extension. The applicant's entitled to one extension. So by the rule, we should be voting tonight, or you should be voting tonight. Now that said, that in law, there's always a question of enforceability. So I encourage you to follow your own rules as they're written in the ordinances, but there's not exactly mechanisms to stop you from taking another month.
Well, I would agree with you. And so the second point, and it goes back to what Councilor Moore was saying, okay, we sat here tonight and heard that there was a willingness to trade property for this, or that it could have been bought. But at this particular stage, we're looking at this as it is an essential street. So now we have a conundrum in front of us that I hope that doesn't open us to some type of lawsuit where we're having to deal with it in court because we've gone from trading or buying to it's essential, and so we're not going to let you have it. So that's a real concern for me from a legal standpoint.
Sure, and Mr. Mayor, Councilor, I won't say never, but there's two underlying principles. So the first one is the mayor and manager couldn't have made a determination. Well, the default determination of law is to preserve a street. Full stop. And so the applicant has to make this showing. And the applicant asked for another month to make the showing to the mayor and manager. They produced a study. The study did not, the communication speaks for itself. So, and then the second part is the city engineer had mentioned that this is quasi-judicial. That's not quite correct. Vacating easements is typically considered a legislative function, and the courts do not disturb it, again, unless you get into this manifest injustice thing.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, and if you have any questions about why I brought up some other things, I knew there were problems down there in that other property down there, down on the river. There were a lot of problems down there when the bird sanctuary and all that stuff. And I was just wondering if was there something, when you're getting $10,000 is for something that was worth $230,000? You know, all I'm saying is, was there some other piece of property that would be of more beneficial use to the citizens of Roswell to make it worthwhile for the benefits to the citizens of this town, be worth closing that street? I wasn't looking for necessarily a dollar-to-dollar trade. I'll never do that again with them. But I'm just saying, I was just looking for a way to solve other issues that we have in our community that have been involved with the individual who was here presenting this, and was quite a show back then.
I have a motion on the table. Can I modify it that we were going to turn it into a one-way street?
Councilor Halverson, I think that.
Or does that even matter for this?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It wasn't posted, so it would be an OMA issue, but I think engineering and legal are both on the same team on this one, and we'll make sure that that's
So my
investigated.
motion was to maintain the street and not vacate.
Okay, we have Councilor Eddie Halverson.
So if we don't, if no one seconds it, then you can change it?
Hold this debate after calling for the question. I can't believe it.
Well, I know what, you've been gone, we missed your guidance. A motion by Councilor Eddie Halverson. Is there a second to Councilor Eddie Halverson's motion to vote on not vacating the street? Is there a second?
If we do not second, does this just die on its own?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The whole project?
Yeah.
Is it, all right. Is there a second to the motion? Is there a second to the motion? Is there a second to the motion? The motion dies for lack of a second, so this item is gone.
Does he have to wait 6 months again?
Again, that's in the governing resolution, so if the governing body chooses by more than 6 votes to do something differently, they can.
Okay. Case number 23 is not been granted. Okay, next we have approval of the following appointments under new business. Item 24, Council Lady Halverson approve. You're the only ones making motions all day. Appointments are following. Didn't we put that into?
No, we didn't put this in.
Okay, following appointments.
Mr. Mayor, I made.
This is for Ann Angel.
Mr. Mayor, I motion that we approve the following appointment as recommended by Mayor Jennings, Deputy City Clerk Angela Garcia.
We have a motion by Councilor Halverson, second by Councilor Carl Marujo.
It was a tie, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, ma'am. Madam Clerk, would you care to
Could you introduce yourself?
bring this poor soul to the table and tell us about her?
Uh-oh.
Or do you want to just have a vote? It's up to you.
No, she gotta say something. Because she has the same name, she has the same.
My name is Angela Garcia, and I look forward to working with you all, being here for you all. So, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Okay, does anybody have any questions they'd like to ask Ms. Garcia? Okay, seeing none.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Seeing none, the clerk will call the roll.
We need a second.
I got a second by Councilor Marujo, a motion by Councilor Lady Howerson, second by Councilor Marujo to approve Ms. Angela Garcia as a deputy city clerk. You want a voice vote? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Vote's closed. Okay. Okay, next, item 25, Councilor Lady Halverson, to consider the approval of the recommendation of the mayor for appointments to the airport.
No, that's the one.
That's what we said, we did.
Let's go to item 26.
Okay, 26. Okay, item 26 is item, ordinance 2503, to advertise for public hearing for ordinance for the sale of real property and for the approval of the city to enter into a purchase sale contract with Amazon Services LLC. Councilman Hildebrand, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that we authorize to advertise for a public hearing recommending ordinance 25-03.
Second.
And second by Councilor Cavan. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion, any questions?
No, we're just gonna hold a public hearing.
Okay, Todd, would you please?
Thank you,
start the
Mr.
public
Mayor.
hearing?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. So this one is ordinance 25-3. Consider recommendation to authorize to advertise for public hearing for 25-3, the ordinance of sale of real property and approval by the city of Roswell to enter into a purchase and sale contract with Amazon Services LLC. The city-owned property has been unused and vacant since 1988 and was determined to be no use of the city. The property there is at the corner of Sunset and Monksdale, so the picture there is looking north. 7.53 acres of 30.29 acres that the city has there, Amazon is looking to carve out. Total purchase price for the property shall be $60,240. The property was independently appraised at $60,240 for the 7.53 acres. Again, city management had reviewed the site and had no plans to develop there. City attorney has reviewed the purchase and sale contract from Amazon.com Services, and the item was submitted to legal committee for review. At the April 24th meeting, there was a vote to send it to full council of 3-0. That's why we are here tonight. Thank you. I stand for questions.
Okay, any questions?
I've got one.
Yes, Councilor Corn.
Then you voted 6-0?
3-0.
3-0.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Is that all? Okay. Any further questions? Okay. Does this piece of property, we're selling this one on the edge of the road?
Yes, sir.
Is there access to the other property? Are we landlocking ourselves to the other property?
No.
The other acres behind, is there street access to the other acres behind?
Yes, sir. In the front, there's front access to that property there, and the other property that we own, there is access from Sunset. So we're not landlocking ourselves.
So, and the people from this property are coming out, going out to Brasher or Sunset?
They'll have, I haven't seen the final renditions of their last mile stop, but the rendition that I did see had access going on Monksdale and on Sunset, so they could go out two ways from their site.
Monksdale is the street that goes.
Yeah, Monksdale is the street that goes east-west, just below the 7-acre plat, and the Sunset is the north-south.
Any further questions?
One question, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Hey, Tom. Yes, sir. So the appraisal in this here is the appraisal is the 30.296 per acre at 8, so we just divided the 242 divided by the total acres on this property to get to that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
This is Cold Cliffs, that's one. Okay. Any further comments? So on a motion by Councilman Hildebrand, second by Councilor Kevin, to authorize to advertise, so is there any, do you want a roll call? If the clerk call the roll.
Councilor Cortez?
Aye.
Councilor Corn?
Yes.
Councilor Oropesa?
Yes.
Councilor Cavan?
Yes.
Councilor Moore?
Yes.
Councilor Marujo?
Yes.
Councilor Johnson?
Yes.
Councilor Arnold? Yes. Councilor Halverson? Yes. Councilor Hildebrand?
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, thank you all very much. Now we have the city manager report.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, members of the council. I want to make an announcement that, of course, we've got what we're calling Comprehensive Master Plan Public Input CHARIT. I hope I'm saying that right. That's basically a fancy word for, we're going to be meeting with stakeholders. May 12th. So May 12th at the library, we'll have CHARIT kickoff 5 to 8 p.m. Hands-on design workshop with interactive activities. Tuesday, the 13th, Wednesday, the 14th, Thursday, the 15th, open studio, 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. Drop by at any time. Of course, this will be at the Community Development Office. On Wednesday, May 14th, back at the library, we'll have resiliency planning for future lecture, 5:30 to 7 p.m. And Thursday, May 15th, work in progress. Again, this will be at the library, 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. Working very closely with HESEM, State Homeland Security Emergency Management, and Ashbridge, our contractor on the waterways. You may have noticed our waterways have been cleared throughout town just in time for the rainy season. So just want to commend that contractor, Abraham Chaparro, working hand in glove with that contractor to get those waterways cleared just in time for our rainy season. Next steps on that waterway will be to get what they call the riprap back up, the stonework back in place. But you will notice that the waterways have been substantially cleared and they've done a fantastic job. Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, where are they getting, behind the old meat plant? Glover's?
Glovers.
This huge hole, are they gonna fill that in, some dirt somewhere?
That will be further mitigation with dirt work, I'm sure, and what they call riprap. And riprap comes in several different forms. It could be concrete, poured concrete.
There's just nothing there to put the riprap on.
Mike and I have been out and observed that very site. It looks like a big swimming hole, actually. And it kind of intersects with another section of the river that comes down the railroad tracks there. So I'm very aware of what you're talking about, and that will be addressed. I want to point out that work has been funded by the state, Homeland Security Emergency Management. So that has relieved the burden on this community, both Roswell and Chaves County, and we really appreciate the state taking on that project. As Bobby Thompson, our airport manager, mentioned, final preparations are underway for what we're calling Pilot Race School, PRS, next week. They have done an outstanding job, and I want to commend her and her team with the airport. Of course, she did a great job of commending Jim Burris, our Parks Department, taking over some of the mowing so the airport could focus in. They've also got an FAA inspection coming up here real soon. So they're gearing up for that. Of course, water, Andrew Valdez and his crews have done a fantastic job laying some pipe, both on the sewer side for a dump station for RVs, as well as the water side for VIP RV parking in time for PRS. Working with our local contractors, several local contractors, and of course coordinating with the county, that will come later. But they've got the pit area chip sealed. That's a big deal for PRS and getting those airplanes out there. And again, local contractors, water department, streets department, parks department, and I'd be remiss if we didn't mention XL Energy and Mike McLeod in particular. They've laid the poles, or they've set the poles out on the ranch, and they'll come back and set the poles on the airfield as we draw a little closer to PRS. So thank you to Mike and his team. They've done a fantastic job. I also want to mention that some of you are aware of Yes Housing, and they were flooded. That's the apartment complex near Stiles Field. Those residents were moved to what's called Lux for temporary accommodations. But the state has requested that the city work as their fiscal agent in order to get Yes Housing residents moved back into their properties, and we're going to accommodate that request and get those folks moved back into their houses. So appreciate the state on that. Another request that we've sent into the state is to pick up that half of the 25% that will not be matched by FEMA. So that request is in, and hopefully we'll hear something very soon. I know we've seen good things from the state with regard to picking up that additional 12.5%, reducing our portion of the 25% to the other 12.5%. So that's important, and we'll keep you informed as we go forward. Thank you, sir.
Okay, anything else?
I have an announcement, if I may make it. It says the Blackman Committee Memorial Gardens dedication is Sunday, May the 18th from 1:30 to 2:30, and that's on the south side of the Roswell. I'll also send this to your email. They sent this to me. I don't know if everybody received it, but the Blackman Memorial Gardens dedication is May 18th from 1:30 to 2:30.
Great American Cleanup, what day is that, do you remember, Chad?
Great American Cleanup.
I think it's this Saturday Matanza, next Saturday.
Oh yeah, Matanza is just.
I believe it was next Saturday. We'll get you a communication, an update on that. There's another cleanup as well going on with game and fish, right in that same time frame. If I recall, theirs was the 15th. We'll get an update on our section.
Yes.
Mr. Cole?
Sir.
And maybe this fits inside Devin and Jeff. What's happening with the Bremen? All I see is weeds growing over there. Nothing taking happening. They're not even cleaning the place up.
Councilor Hildebrand, thank you for the question. So this is something our legal department, myself, have looked at and noted. If you drive by DeBerman Stadium, you'll notice that nothing has been touched. The leaves are from the flood, all of the trash cans, all of those things. So let me give you a little bit of background. For as long as I can remember, the city of Roswell owns DeBerman Stadium and leases DeBerman Stadium to the Roswell Independent School District for all of its students, typically middle school students, to play soccer and football games. And they have done that, leased it from city of Roswell for $1 a year, again, for as long as I can remember. They have a they have an existing lease with the city for $1 a year. Part of that lease, the terms of that lease, is that they will maintain the property and make repairs to the property. The permanent structures, the bleachers, the rock stone bleachers, the walkways, those are ours. The field shall be maintained by the school district. And so they have not done that in this instance, and we have reached out to both the superintendent and the school board members with our concerns on this. They have sent, and they allowed us to enter the property and inspect it with our engineer, James McCornack and Louis Nahar, went and inspected the property. Mr. Itema and myself also went and took a walk around the property. Again, reached out to the management and the governing authority of the school district, both verbally and in writing. And so nothing has been done up to this point. We wanted to give them some time with their own insurer to look at this, but they have a full-blown maintenance department. And, you know, the grass is starting to grow through the debris that's out there. And so nothing has happened. And I think Mr. Itema can elaborate a little more on next steps.
Mr. Mayor, Councilor Hildebrand, yeah, so I sent a breach notice a few, 4 or 5 weeks ago now. We got a nice letter back from their insurer saying, give us some time, and I'm gonna send them another breach notice tomorrow probably, because I've been a little fed up myself.
Do we send code enforcement by and write them up, because they got weeds growing in there like crazy?
Oh my gosh.
Counselor, you sent that letter, but you've been on this for 4 months now. I think they've had more than enough time. I mean, I approached a school board member with this back probably 6 months ago, and we've been on it now. You've had to go to legal, but unfortunately, the school district wants to try to break their lease with us and do other things instead of taking responsibility.
I've been told they want to move to Cielo Grande Fields.
Who owns Cielo Grande?
City of Roswell.
That might be a little difficult to accomplish.
Yeah, so if you guys want me to pursue this, I'm very happy to take it to its conclusion.
Send code enforcement by first and write them up.
Accountability. You know, on that though, you know, we also lease the schools. We own the wool bowl and we lease that to the schools. And, you know, the Institute is wants to build a press box so they can move the Broncos to be playing inside the Institute proper. Well, if they build one in the Institute proper at the field they have there, they're gonna build a press box up there. You're gonna have an elevator to it and everything else. That's gonna cost $1 million or $2 million to do that. And why? And it's because they can't work with the city. We need to, or work with the schools, I guess. We need to sit down and have a committee together to look at the management of the wool bowl. And, I mean, the Institute, it's a junior college thing, and they certainly, I know there's not a lot of people there, but that's probably the place where they ought to play, not be playing on a regular high school field necessarily. And, I mean, because that's the way we built the wool bowl to play, for the Broncos to play there. And, so we ought to have, that's something we ought to look into that too. So I would hope we would do that between, okay? And there's one other thing, one last thing. Angela, this is your first time as deputy clerk. The responsibilities are that you make sure every time in one of these meetings, all the counselors have some water and something to drink here. That's your responsibility.
I told her to bring this drinky drink over there.
Yeah. So that's it. Is there anything else?